Welcome to the fantasy audiobook, Hunter x Hunter, starting with the Kuruta tribe. Chapter 21. Rocky entered the bathroom. Although he was taking a shower, he still kept his ears perked up to listen to the conversation outside. This morning, little Rocky told me that he had a strange dream. I dreamed that the people of Phantom Troupe destroyed the Kuruta tribe. As Rocky's uncle, Gao Yu was stunned for a moment. Chief, you just called us here because of a dream. Although Gao Yu didn't seem to be very smart, there were smart guys in the tribe. Chief, how did Rocky know about Phantom Troupe? The chief shook his head. It's impossible to know about Phantom Troupe through any channel. Hearing this, Gao Yu was also stunned. Yes, that stinky boy of his own, who had never come into contact with people outside at this age, how did he know about Phantom Troupe? Even he had only heard of this name vaguely once. Maybe some of you don't know much about Phantom Troupe. Let me tell you about it. After the basic information of Phantom Troupe was finished, all the tribesmen were stunned. How did Rocky dream about these people? And it's not a big deal if it's just a dream. Hearing this, the chief sighed and shook his head. No. I think this is not just a dream, but also a prophecy. Prophecy. Everyone looked at each other, as if they thought the chief was a little too fanciful. Yes, it's a prophecy. The chief looked at everyone very seriously. As Nen, you should know very well that Nen are very sensitive to danger, and Rocky is a genius that my Kuruta tribe has never had. You all know this very well. The dream he suddenly had may not just be a dream, but he sensed the danger and showed him some future scenes. The chief lowered his head and thought, it may even be a certain ability that he has not yet developed, which is reminding him of the coming of danger. Although this seems to be somewhat credible, it is hard to say whether it is a dream or a prophecy. Seeing that everyone was silent, the chief raised his head and said, I've been thinking about it for a day. Whether it's true or not, it doesn't matter even if it's just a false alarm. If nothing happens, isn't it the best for the Kuruta tribe? But, the chief paused here and said, what if, even if there is a 1 in 1,000 chance that it's true? The others also frowned, and their expressions were quite solemn. If it's true, then the entire Kuruta tribe is finished. The Phantom Troupe group is quite brutal. Once they are targeted, they are powerless to resist. So, I would rather believe that this is little Rocky's prediction of the future of our Kuruta tribe than pretend not to hear it. Gao Yu was the first to stand up. Chief, what should we do if it is true? The chief sighed. Little Rocky's dream did not mention the time, so we don't know when it will happen. But it is still necessary to strengthen vigilance. The barrier within the tribe has not been properly repaired for many years. We are used to living a peaceful life. We feel that the outside world seems to have begun to ignore our Kuruta tribe. Little Rocky has reminded me. The chief sat down and tapped the armrest with his fingers. First, everyone will build a new barrier tomorrow based on the existing barrier. Second, Heizo, you will leave the village tomorrow and go to the outside world to collect information about Phantom Troupe. Remember, you only need to collect a little bit. Don't ask too much. It will be bad if you attract attention. The man named Heizo was about 30 years old, with a light beard and a quiet look. He looked more like a small business owner or a company employee on a business trip with glasses. Such people were the least likely to be noticed. Okay, I understand, Chief. Third, if an emergency really happens, do our people have a place to escape? Regarding the third point, everyone obviously didn't know how to answer. After all, they have been living in peace for so many years, who would think about what to do when they encounter danger? Seeing their looks, the chief sighed, then we need to develop a plan to deal with emergencies. If the tribe is attacked, where should ordinary tribesmen escape to? In case of an emergency, some people should be left to block the enemy, but the rest of the people must also have a place to escape. When I heard this, Rocky had already finished his shower and was wiping his hair with a towel. If they couldn't think of a solution to this problem, maybe I could tell them a solution. The cliff where they explored the terrain during the previous training was the best escape route. But that is only suitable for Nen like me, or even strictly speaking, only for me. And if you want ordinary people to escape through that route, then the only way is to dig a tunnel. If you want to dig a passage in such a big mountain, it is not something that 1 or 2 people can do. However, A large tunnel is naturally impossible, but if you just dig a small passage that can accommodate 2 or 3 people or even 1 person, there is still hope. If Nen work together, it is not impossible to dig a passage of hundreds of meters in length in about 10 days. Grandpa Clan Leader, I know a good place, and that direction is also the only location without a barrier. Rocky suddenly walked out of the room and said, interrupting the discussion. Everyone looked at Rocky. The clan leader was stunned for a moment. What place? Rocky came to the window and pointed to a cliff in the west. The height of the cliff in that direction is destined to make it impossible for anyone to come from that direction, so there is no barrier. And the inherited divine word of the Kuruta tribe is also a cave opened in that direction. I have used my ability to climb that cliff before, and there is a canyon behind it. If we can dig a passage, then once we pass through it and destroy it, the cliff alone will be enough to block the enemy for a long time. And during this time, if we can quickly pass through the canyon and destroy it together, it will be even more impossible to be caught up. The patriarch was stunned for a moment. How did Rocky climb up the cliff? Even with Rocky's ability, it is impossible to apparate such a long distance at one time unless this kid couldn't have apparated continuously to get up there. If he falls down accidentally, he will die. This kid who doesn't know the height of the world is simply courting death. However, if what Rocky said is true, then this is a good idea. Take me to see it tomorrow, and you, Gao Yu, will come with us. If the terrain is really like that, then the escape route in case of an emergency will be set there. Seeing that there was no objection from others, Rocky breathed a sigh of relief. The first step to change his fate was quite smooth. Rocky, are you going back so early today? Rocky didn't look up when he heard the voice, but casually threw away his muddy hat and shovel. He waved his hand without looking back. No. Let's stop here if we are tired today. Anyway, there is only a little left, I will leave it to you. Rocky looked back at Kurpa and Piro. The two nodded at Rocky. Leave the rest to us. Go back and have a good rest. Piro patted his chest and said. And Kurpa on the side also smiled at Rocky. More than a month has passed unknowingly. Since Rocky took the tribe leader to see the terrain, the tribe leader immediately confirmed Rocky's idea. The excavation of the escape passage was started, and the excavation action of course needed to be performed by Nen. After all, using Nen to excavate is not a little bit faster. And Rocky naturally participated in it, and because of Rocky's terrible Nen talent, Rocky was even more powerful than those adult tribe members. On the first day, Rocky felt exhausted after digging about 20 meters by himself. The digging process is equivalent to training the application skills of Nen. But just 20 meters made Rocky feel that his Nen was consumed too quickly. However, after resting, he increased his Nen by 80 meters on the second day. Rocky dug 100 meters by himself, which made other Nen of the Kuruta tribe feel incredible. They all understood why the tribe leader believed that Rocky was not dreaming, but a prophecy for the entire Kuruta tribe. Such a terrifying talent and such a speed of progress are inhuman. For such a genius premonition, it is probably not as simple as a dream. In the days that followed, Rocky's progress was even more exaggerated. Every day seemed to have earth-shaking changes, and this was because Rocky did not spend all his time practicing. Because of Rocky's abnormality, the time to open the channel was half faster than expected. This 800-meter-long channel was finally completed. However, the tunnel is not over after it is completed. It needs to be reinforced, otherwise the tunnel will collapse if there is an earthquake or heavy rain that affects the geological conditions. The rest of the time is to reinforce the tunnel every day. And this work is not only done by Nen. Piro, Kurpa and others are also here. During this month, Rocky continued to practice and made rapid progress. Originally, Rocky felt that he could not reach the level of the members of the brigade in a short time. But now it seems that there is really hope. After all, although the results of Rocky's various application skills are not perfect, they have been mastered one after another. The amount of mind energy has also increased by more than 10 times. Now Rocky estimates that he is probably at the same level as the clan leader. The practice of each system has also been continuously enhanced. Although the effect is already amazing, Rocky feels that he is far from reaching his limit. Since he has a top talent, he must be like Jin. Any attack-related ability can be imitated as long as it is hit once. Jin was able to do this not only because of his strong talent, but also because of his solid foundation. If he didn't have a solid foundation, how could he imitate other people's moves? During this period, Rocky was most worried about why Kurapika didn't seem to move at all. He didn't even think about leaving the village. Could it be that the butterfly effect he instigated affected Kurapika, making this guy not want to leave the village? If so, it would be even more troublesome. I don't know when Phantom Troupe will come to the door. In other words, it could happen at any time. And now it's the end of December. Since Phantom Troupe hasn't come to the door yet, it means that the other party is likely to take action in January. According to the estimated time, it's either December or January, either the beginning of the year or the end of the year. Now December should not be possible, so it's January. Next month is when the disaster of the Kuruta tribe will come. This is good. Rocky can make at least one more modification. At 8 o'clock tonight, the modification permission will be obtained again. And he can also see if there is any new information column. If there is a new information column, what will it be? So Rocky left early today. Usually, he would go back with everyone. When Rocky returned home, even the clan leader had not returned, so Rocky went to wash up alone, and lay on the bed while practicing the entanglement, waiting for the countdown of the modification permission to end. Host: Rocky. Race: Human. Kuruta. Nen talent: Top. Physical potential: Intermediate. Bloodline ability: Low-level fire red eyes. Physical condition: Good. Rocky frowned. There is an extra information column. Isn't there an extra information column every time the re-evaluation is done? It seems that his guess is wrong. No, that's not right. Although there is no extra information column, the information column of the bloodline ability seems to be more detailed. Single quote. Low-level fire red eyes. The information bar will not only increase, but also become more detailed. If so, it seems that the more detailed modification I thought of before may bring greater improvement. However, what will happen if the additional physical condition information bar is modified? Good. What if it is modified to excellent? Single quote. Physical condition: Excellent. Prompt that the status belongs to the variable information bar, and this modification can be maintained for 1 day. Confirm this modification, and estimate the countdown for the next modification permission acquisition. 1 day 0 hour 0 minute 0 second. Rocky was stunned for a moment. The modification lasts for 1 day, and the interval is also 1 day. If this is the case, that means I can always maintain my state in an excellent state. Do I not even need to sleep? When the state is always maintained in an excellent state, Rocky can't believe how amazing his training speed will be. However, if you want to maintain this state, you naturally can't modify other things. But it doesn't matter if it's 1 day. You can experience it first and then study what to modify. Confirm modification. Countdown to obtain modification permissions. 0 days 23 hours 59 minutes 59 seconds. The countdown has begun, and Rocky suddenly feels that the fatigue accumulated during the day seems to have been swept away. Even the amount of mind energy seems to have increased a lot. Is this the feeling of being in full state? The sleepiness is also swept away. Rocky turned over and wanted to see how effective this state of cultivation is. Quick, take him to the house quickly, and call someone to come and check his injuries. First, use a bandage to stop the bleeding. When Rocky was excited, he suddenly heard a voice outside. He opened the door to check and found that the tribe leader and several people in Kurapika brought Piro into the house and put him on the bed in another room. And there was blood on the ground. What's going on? Rocky came out, looking at the busy people. He didn't dare to ask, and waited until someone bandaged Piro's wound and stopped the bleeding. A tribe member stayed beside Piro, and the tribe leader asked the others to leave, including Kurapika. Okay, go back. I'll take care of the rest. Someone will come to treat Piro soon, don't worry. The others nodded and left, leaving Kurapika sitting on the sofa with her head down in thought, looking like she didn't want to speak. Rocky turned to look at the tribe leader grandfather. This is. Piro was injured, but how was he injured? Could it be that an adult attacked the Kuruta tribe, but from the looks of everyone, they didn't want to? There was a problem when the passage was reinforced. A rock from the collapsed passage broke Piro's leg. The chief patted Rocky on the shoulder and said, "It's not a big problem. Don't worry, it can be cured." He glanced in the direction of Kurupika and said, "Go and comfort your friend." Rocky came to sit next to Kurupika and said, "It's okay. It can be cured, but it just takes a while to rest." At this time, the other party didn't speak, and Rocky was a little surprised. Although it is indeed worrying that a good friend is injured, it is not that serious. A broken leg can be cured, not to mention that in this world of Nen, even if the doctor can't do it, Nen can still treat it. Soon, someone came. It should be the Kuruta tribe who is responsible for treating people. After entering the room and checking Piro, the other party came out. The chief's leg is connected. It should be fine after a period of recuperation. Hearing this, the chief nodded and said, "Okay." But Piro's eyes seemed to be blind. Ah, what happened? Did he hurt his eyes? The chief was a little confused. He checked on Piro's condition and there was no sign of injury to his eyes. The other party thought for a moment and then slowly said, "It's probably not because of this incident, but Piro seems to have some kind of disease that caused his eyes to go blind. Because this collapse caused the disease in his body to break out. With the current means in the village, there is no way to treat it." The chief was stunned when he heard it. Disease. This is bad. Broken legs are trivial, but this kind of disease cannot be effectively treated with the conditions of the Kuruta tribe. After a long time, the chief sighed, "Okay, I know, you go back and rest." Rocky also suddenly remembered that Piro seemed to have some kind of disease, but he didn't expect it to affect his eyes. Although he didn't know much about this knowledge, Rocky also knew that if the disease was not treated in time, it would only make the condition more serious or even lose his life. "Chief, I'll take him out for treatment." Suddenly Kurupika spoke, and this sentence made the chief's face even gloomier. "Get out. Do you know how much of an impact it will have on the entire Kuruta tribe?" The tribe leader who said this now had no kindness on his face. This was the first time Rocky saw the tribe leader get angry. "Are we just going to watch Piro die?" Kurupika suddenly stood up and said angrily. "You don't understand at all. My Kuruta tribe is a devil to outsiders. Once they find us." The tribe leader was interrupted by Kurupika before he finished speaking. "It's always the same set of rhetoric. What red-eyed devil, what outsiders will harm us? Why don't I see them coming to harm us? And it's been so long, people outside may have already forgotten the Kuruta tribe, let alone the red-eyed devil. Just go out and find a doctor to treat Piro. I'll go find him. You want to give up Piro? I will never give up Piro." Kurupika was very excited when she said this, and her eyes were faintly red. The chief looked at Kurupika with a firm look and was slightly moved. But this is the rule of the Kuruta tribe, and it is also the rule to ensure the safety of the Kuruta tribe members. He will not compromise easily. Rocky, who was standing by, saw the two people like this. He suddenly remembered that the plot might have begun. Kurupika wanted to leave the Kuruta tribe, which means that the genocide incident was about to take place. In an instant, Rocky became nervous for no reason. What he was about to face was Phantom Troupe. It would be strange if he was not nervous. The two were still arguing, and at this time Rocky suddenly spoke. "Grandpa Chief, let Kurupika go. Piro can't just give up like that. He is also a member of the Kuruta tribe. If you protect others, won't you protect him?" The chief kept silent after hearing this. "That's right. Piro is also a member of the Kuruta tribe. Since he is a member, it is also the chief's responsibility to protect Piro." But when he thought of the rules of the Kuruta tribe, the chief sighed. "Okay, what else can I say when you two little brats say so?" Seeing the chief give in, Kurupika even looked at Rocky with gratitude. If Rocky hadn't asked for help, maybe this old guy might never agree. And the reason why Rocky spoke to Kurupika was because he thought about it. It was decided to try to ensure that the plot would not be affected too much before the genocide began. If Kurupika was prevented from leaving the village, then Rocky might not even know when the most basic Phantom Troupe would come, and that would be the real trouble. But it's impossible for you to leave today. Although Piro's condition is serious, there is still some time. You want to leave the village? Good. I'll give you a chance. If you can pass the test, you can get a pass and travel freely between the outside world and the tribe like Hesa. Kurapika jumped up with joy when she heard this. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Rocky. If it weren't for you, I'm afraid this old man wouldn't agree so easily. The chief's face suddenly darkened when he heard the 3 words, old man. Don't think that I'm giving you a chance, which means you can leave the village. You still have to pass the test. However, even so, Kurapika was excited. Don't worry, I will definitely pass your test, and I will definitely find the best doctor for Piro. Ignoring Kurapika, the chief glanced at Rocky and said, Little Rocky, don't even think about leaving the village. Kurapika is already 12 years old, and she barely has the conditions to go out, but you are only 8 years old. Rocky smiled helplessly when he heard this. If the pass to go out was what Rocky wanted before, he would have gotten it, but now Rocky doesn't want any pass. He has to try, no matter if it can be changed, he will try his best to save the Kuruta tribe. Apart from other things, the people here are really good. Rocky likes this atmosphere very much, and gradually feels a little bit at home with the Kuruta tribe. Grandpa, don't worry, I won't leave the Kuruta tribe. For some reason, the chief always feels something is wrong when he hears Rocky's words, but this makes him very happy. The next morning, Rocky opened his eyes. He clenched his fists gently, still feeling energetic, as if the whole night of practice did not bring him the slightest bit of fatigue. The effect of maintaining the state is too abnormal. If it continues in this state, then Rocky feels that one day may be better than the previous 10 days of practice. And although the physical condition is very good, it still takes some time to slowly recover from the consumption of the mind energy. It's just right to send Kurapika off during this time. Kurapika, who was waiting in front of the clan leader's house early in the morning, was waiting in the living room early. Rocky got up and happened to meet the clan leader who was giving instructions. About the test. I also know your academic performance in the outside language and history, so you don't need to continue to test these 2 items. If the Kuruta people want to leave the Kuruta tribe, they need to complete 3 tests. The first is to learn the language and writing of the outside world. The language of the Kuruta tribe is different from that of the outside world, so you need to master the common language and writing outside, and practice using it as proficiently as your own mother tongue. The second is to master the history and humanities of the outside world. If you don't master these, you will attract attention when you go out, which may expose the secrets of the Kuruta tribe, so you must learn. As for the third one, there is only one test for you today. You need to go to the town closest to the Kuruta tribe and find a doctor who can cure Piro. Piro came out of the room. Although he was injured, Piro was able to move after a night of recuperation. It has to be said that the physique of people in this world is strong. Or maybe this is the unique ability of the Kuruta tribe. Piro will go with you. After you find a doctor, treat Piro and then return to the village. And you must not open the red eyes during this process. If you complete the test, then I will give you a permanent pass, and you can go out and do what you want. Kurapika was stunned when he heard this. The tribe leader obviously took into account what he said before, that he wanted to become a hunter. The test is a disguised agreement to treat Piro's numbness. Last night, he still looked like the rules could not be changed. In fact, he still couldn't bear to see Piro being tortured by the disease like this. Don't worry, I will definitely pass the test. Piro looked at Kurapika. Thank you, Kurapika. Don't worry, I will try my best to help you complete the test. Kurapika didn't say anything but wanted to help Piro. Piro waved his hand to indicate that he didn't need to do it. Drop these 2 eye drops on your eyes. The chief took out 2 bottles of eye drops. What is this? Kurapika asked. This is a special eye drop. Drop it on your eyes. Once you open the red eye will remain open for 24 hours. When I come back, I will judge whether you have passed the test by whether your red eye is open. The 2 nodded, and at this time Rocky suddenly opened his eyes wide. Special eye drops can keep the red eye open for 24 hours. This is the secret medicine of the Kuruta tribe in disguise. Rocky's red eyes can be opened for 10 minutes normally, but this potion can keep the eyes open for 24 hours. While thinking, Rocky heard Kurapika and Piro say goodbye. Rocky came back to his senses and greeted the 2 people and sent them away. After the 2 people left, Rocky looked at the chief and said, Grandpa Chief, can you give me a bottle of the eye drops you just saw? The chief was stunned for a moment. What do you want that for? Didn't you say you didn't want to leave? Why are you? No, no, no. I don't want to leave the Kuruta tribe, I just want the eye drops. The chief frowned, just wanting the eye drops. Suddenly, the chief's eyes narrowed slightly. Little Rocky, it's rare that you can see it. But this kind of eye drops only makes the fiery red eyes look like they are open, and it doesn't have the power to really make the fiery red eyes open. Hearing this, Rocky was stunned and a little disappointed. Although there is no eye drops that can last for 24 hours, I have eye drops that can last for 1 hour. The chief took out a bottle of red eye drops from his arms. Although this thing can force you to maintain your fiery red eyes for an hour, it will cause a huge burden on your body. After using it for the first time, with your physical condition, you will probably collapse to the ground without any strength. When Rocky heard about the side effects, he was still a little worried, but when he heard the following words, Rocky's eyes turned slightly. Is there nothing else besides feeling tired without strength? The tribe leader said unhappily, isn't this serious? Draining all your strength will cause permanent damage to your body. Do you still think it's not serious? It seems to be quite serious for ordinary tribesmen, but does this side effect really exist for Rocky? As long as it does not damage his eyes and just makes himself tired, there is no side effect at all. As long as he modifies his state, he can guarantee a 24-hour excellent state. As long as it does not cause permanent damage to the body or blood, and only affects the physical state, then there is no effect. Don't worry, Grandpa, the clan leader. Rocky put away the eye drops and said, I won't use them recklessly. I just thought that if I encounter danger, I would have some hope. The clan leader no longer thought Rocky's idea was too strange. Although Rocky is younger, he sometimes seems more mature than Kurapika, a 12-year-old child. As long as you don't use them recklessly. After saying that, Rocky turned around and ran to the dining table to grab 2 fruits and bread. He ran out in a flash. I'm going to continue my practice today. Looking at Rocky who disappeared in the blink of an eye, the clan leader smiled and said, only at this time can I be more like a child. Rocky came to his old place. First, he took a look at the eye drops. He didn't know what it felt like to drop them in. Should he try it? Forget it, let's not do it first. Let's start the practice first. Rocky's physical condition is the best now. In this case, he doesn't know how much his mental energy can burst out. At the same time, it's a good time to think about the evacuation plan. Rocky thought about it all night last night. Kurapika was about to leave the Kuruta tribe, and the extermination of the tribe was about to begin. At this time, Rocky chose to stay, not to wait for death, but to save the Kuruta tribe. After thinking about it all night last night, Rocky has initially thought of a solution. Although this solution is not easy to implement, it is the only way. And the premise of this solution is that Rocky needs to improve his mind energy as soon as possible. The amount of mind energy is a crucial part of this plan. If the amount of mind energy does not meet the requirements, it may be difficult to realize Rocky's evacuation plan. First of all, through the previous prophecy, the Kuruta tribe has basically changed to a certain extent, but it has not been completely resolved. After all, before the incident happened, it was still too far-fetched for Rocky to make the whole village believe in the extermination of the tribe with his weight. Even if the tribe leader came forward, no one would just leave because of an 8-year-old kid. So early evacuation is basically impossible. Since it is impossible to evacuate in advance, then the only way is to find a way to send all the tribesmen to a safe place as quickly as possible when the incident occurs. And this requires Rocky to have more energy, otherwise even relying on Rocky's ability, there is no way to transfer the tribesmen in a short time. During the month of digging the escape channel, Rocky did 2 things. One is to find out the situation of the entire Kuruta village, understand the residence of every family member, and draw a map. The residences of the 43 households of the Kuruta tribe were clearly marked on it. At the same time, Rocky also researched 2 routes that could reach each household the fastest. Rocky planned to leave his own divine characters on the trees, stones, or even the ground covered by these 2 routes to assist his retreat plan. It would be a huge project to carve divine characters on all of these 2 routes to cover them completely. If it was the previous Rocky, it would be impossible to complete it, but it is different now. Rocky's physical condition is always in the best condition, and in this case it is nothing more than a matter of consuming nen. The body will not feel tired, and with this prerequisite, the carving of the divine characters can be completed as quickly as possible. There is no problem in completing it within 2 days. After completing the carving of the divine characters, not only will Rocky be able to be within the range of the divine characters, Rocky's nen burst will be stronger and consume less. At the same time, it can also superimpose Rocky's speed, strength, etc., allowing Rocky to burst out with stronger power. And to complete this plan, another key is when Kurapika will leave the village. After leaving, Phantom Troupe will probably come to the door soon, but when exactly, will it appear as soon as Kurapika leaves, or will it take a few days? This is hard to predict. This is also the problem Rocky is most worried about now. It will take at least 2 days. In 2 days, he can carve the divine characters of the 2 roots and strengthen his own mental energy at the same time, which should be enough to meet the requirements. Of course, the more time the better, but if it is less than 2 days, it will be difficult for Rocky to evacuate the Kuruta tribe as much as possible. I have done everything I can, and the rest depends on God's will. The test for Kurapika is actually not too difficult. The only episode is that the tribe leader personally found some people to deliberately make things difficult for Kurapika and Piro. Enraged Kurapika so that Kurapika opened the red eyes and exposed his identity. In the end, Kurapika really couldn't hold back his anger, opened the red eyes and beat the provocateur half to death. This also exposed the fiery red eyes, but fortunately, Piro had tampered with the eye drops in advance, so that when Kurapika returned to the village, the fiery red eyes had already disappeared. Finally passed the test. Speaking of this, perhaps the extermination of the Kuruta tribe was also related to Kurapika. He exposed the fiery red eyes. If someone with a keen eye investigates, these small clues may be fatal. The timing seems to be just right. Kurapika exposed the fiery red eyes, and soon after he left the Kuruta tribe, he was exterminated. Before the sun was about to set in the evening, Kurapika and Piro came back. Seeing that Kurapika did not open the fiery red eyes, the chief was very pleased to say that Kurapika passed the test and obtained a pass. From now on, he can enter and leave the Kuruta tribe freely, and can also go to the outside world. Kurapika was very happy about this. At this time, Rocky, who had returned home early to wait, asked, "Kurapika, when are you going to leave?" Hearing this, Kurapika turned around and looked at Piro. "We should wait until Piro's foot recovers, and I need to prepare to go out." Rocky nodded. Judging from Piro's physique, it will take about 3 to 5 days for his foot injury to recover. In other words, Rocky may have another week. Then this week is quite sufficient. He can even make more preparations. "Do you want to go out with me?" Kurapika asked with a smile. And Rocky shook his head. "It's not the time yet." He didn't say no, just that it's not the time, which made Kurapika very confused. Why it's not the time? After thinking about it, maybe Rocky felt that he was still young. "You are too young now, and it's not suitable to go out. When you are older in 2 years, I will tell the tribe leader and take you out together." Rocky nodded. 2 years later, it is not known whether the Kuruta tribe will still exist after 2 years. In the following time, Rocky began to carry out his own plan, and Kurapika accompanied Piro in the last time. Help Piro recover from his injuries. Piro's physique is still good, and he recovered quickly. After treatment, his eyes have temporarily stabilized and there are no signs of continued vision loss. But to completely cure it, better treatment is needed, or better medicine is found. Kurapika also wants to go out as soon as possible. And just the day before Kurapika went out, Heza came back. The tribe member sent by the chief to investigate. Under the cover of night, he quietly returned to the Kuruta tribe. And he found the chief directly. The two met secretly somewhere. It was a serious matter and no news could be leaked. At the riverside at night, Heza said solemnly, "Chief, I did find something wrong. I investigated the information of Phantom Troupe, but unexpectedly saw a group of outsiders in the town. They don't seem to live in the town, but in a broken house outside the town. These people are all nen, and they are all masters. But I don't know who they are. I did a brief investigation on Phantom Troupe, but I only found some insignificant information and nothing special." The chief frowned. Such a remote town suddenly came with a group of nen, and they are all masters. You haven't been noticed by them. Hearing this, Heisa shook his head. Chief, please rest assured, my ability is absolutely impossible to be discovered. Heisa's Nen is not a combat type, but it is very suitable for lurking and hiding. Even if they can find clues, they will definitely not find Heisa. Otherwise, it is impossible for the chief to send them out rashly. The chief suddenly stopped talking, which made Heizo a little confused. Chief, what's wrong with you? The chief shook his head. I was thinking about little Rocky's prophecy. As for Rocky's prediction, Heizao felt that it was alarmist at first, but now that he has indeed discovered the problem, he no longer thinks so. Although the advanced prediction of Nen is a bit incredible, it is not groundless. Even he himself now feels as if there is an inexplicable pressure on his chest. Chief, if Rocky's prediction is true, what should we do now? A group of Nen masters came here, obviously not to visit such a remote place. There must be a purpose, and at this time it is better to imagine them as enemies than to ignore them. The chief pondered for a moment, and then sighed. Fortunately, because of Rocky's prediction, an emergency escape passage has been built in advance, otherwise it would be impossible for such a large tribe to sneak out from somewhere. Hearing this, Heizao also nodded. That decision did leave a glimmer of hope for the current Kuruta tribe. But now there are two problems. Although there is an emergency escape route, after escaping, it is nothing more than crossing the forest and reaching the other side, and on the other side is another town by the sea. By crossing the forest, compared with the normal route, half of the time can be saved, which is about 3 days. But this is only relative to ordinary people. For Nen, this time will be shorter. In the worst case, if they are discovered by the enemy, they can only have half a day of time difference at most. And in half a day, if the tribesmen want to be completely safe after arriving at that place, they have to hire a boat to go out to sea, and the destination is still unclear. Even if they escape from the pursuit of the enemy, they don't know where the next destination is. Of course, this can be thought about later. The most urgent task is how to transfer the tribesmen safely. Although the tribe of more than 100 people is not too large, with their families, not every Kuruta tribe member has combat power. Most of them are ordinary people. And the most fatal thing is that most of the tribesmen have only a vague understanding of the history and language of the outside world, and it is easy for people to find something wrong. At the same time, if this group of people really came for the Kuruta tribe, then once they found that the Kuruta tribe had moved, they would definitely chase them closely. Half a day might not be enough. If the other party has someone who is good at tracking, then it may be at most 1 or 2 hours, and such time cannot guarantee the safety of the tribe members at all. Someone needs to contain the other party to buy time for most of the tribe members to evacuate. The tribe leader thought for a moment. Heizo, you are proficient in the history of the outside world, as well as the language, culture and customs, and you often live outside. Now I will give you an important task. What task, tribe leader? Heizo felt the solemnity of the tribe leader's tone, and the whole person became more serious. I will go back and inform the 10 families. You will take these people through the evacuation route we have planned before and catch them on the other side of the forest to wait. Once I send out the signal, you will immediately take these people into the town on the other side of the forest and find a boat to go out to sea. It is up to you to decide where to go. I just hope you can keep these people safe as much as possible. At the same time, I hope you can prepare a boat for me in advance, just in case. Hearing this, Heizo probably understood. He didn't understand why. If the chief wants to leave, why don't we go together? The chief shook his head and said, it's not certain yet. What if the other party is not coming for us? So many people acting together will make it easier to be discovered. And if it's a false alarm, then we don't need to evacuate. Another reason cannot be explained clearly. Once the news is fully announced, all the people in the tribe will be panicked. So only 10 families are taken away, so that the excuse of finding a new place for the tribe to live can be used as a pretext to get by. If it is said directly, then everyone will probably want to evacuate as soon as possible. Now it is better to reduce the noise. In the worst case, at least these 10 families can evacuate, which can be regarded as a seed for the Kuruta tribe. Chief, let me stay. I am a Nen. If there are enemies, I can also stop them and buy time for other tribesmen. No, you are different, Heisa. If it really comes to that, the Kuruta tribe needs a chief. If I die, you will be the new chief. Then he handed the tribe leader's token to Haza directly. If I die, you use this thing to make other tribe members obey your orders. Tribal leader. No need to say more. One last request, keep an eye on Rocky. He is the most outstanding genius in the history of the Kuruta tribe. With Rocky, it will only take 10 years for the Kuruta tribe to have a powerful Nen. The tribe leader smiled, maybe we won't have to live in hiding at that time. Haza was now in tears. Tribal leader. I will never let you down. Yes. The tribe leader nodded. After returning home, the tribe leader came to Rocky's room, where Rocky was practicing Nen at the moment. Seeing such a diligent Rocky, the tribe leader felt even more relieved. On the other side, in your dilapidated wooden house on the edge of the town outside the forest where the Kuruta tribe hid. Single quote. A group of people were gathering. Who else hasn't come? Under the candlelight, the man with the inverse cross was sitting on a broken wooden chair, gently flipping through the book in his hand. Paknotan leaned against the wall. And Uvijin and Phaeton. Krollo nodded, but for some reason he felt uneasy at the moment, as if something was slipping through his fingers. Was it an illusion, or was there some implication? Krollo was not sure about this. There were 6 people now, which should be enough to complete the mission. But Uvijin was a member of the death squad, so he still needed Uvijin to lead the charge. The Kuruta tribe was not a simple race. One of the 7 beauties in the world, it was an honor but also a death warrant. 5 or 6 days passed in a blink of an eye. The weather had not been very good during this period, with drizzling rain every day and terrible gloom every day. Today was the day when Kurupika officially left the village, and Piro's condition was almost better. At the entrance of the village, the chief smiled as he watched Kurupika go away. At this time when there might be danger, he did not stop Kurupika from leaving. If she was discovered, then Kurupika's death would be a warning to the Kuruta tribe. If not, then it would also be a disguised way to keep a seed for the Kuruta tribe. After Kurupika left, the chief found Rocky. Little Rocky, I want you to do something. Hearing this, Rocky was stunned for a moment, and then saw a man walking out from behind the chief. His name is Haza, another person in the village who got a pass. I found a new place to live. You follow him to take a look. After hearing this, Rocky was stunned for a second, then lowered his head and smiled. At this time, I will not leave the Kuruta tribe. Grandpa, don't forget that the prophecy came from me. I know very well what may happen next. Hearing Rocky's words, the chief smiled a little. But after being happy, he still said very seriously, Little Rocky. You don't have to, you are still young, your world is very broad, follow Haza to go to the outside world and go to where you should go. The chief also knew that with Rocky's talent, he could only grow up if he went to the outside world. Staying in the Kuruta tribe would only bury Rocky's talent. However, Rocky shook his head, go out. I will, but not now. The Kuruta tribe is in danger. If I leave at this time, then am I still a member of the Kuruta tribe? The chief was stunned. He didn't expect Rocky to have such awareness at such a young age. Rocky, the chief is also for the future of the Kuruta tribe. You should stay with me. Haza couldn't help but speak. He was deeply touched by what the chief said to him before. But Rocky still shook his head. Mr. Haza, I know, but it is absolutely impossible to leave at this time. I am also a Nen, and my strength is not weak. At this time, I can help more tribesmen. After saying that, Rocky looked at the tribe leader, don't worry. Tribe leader, I don't want to die in vain. I just want to do my part. If there is really no way, I will choose to escape. With my ability, it is difficult for the enemy to catch me if I really want to escape. Hearing this, the tribe leader thought for a few seconds. Seeing that Rocky's eyes did not waver at all, he also understood that Rocky was determined. Even if he forced Rocky to leave, he might. Okay, it's up to you, but if there is danger, you must escape as soon as possible. In fact, at this time, Rocky was a little confused. Tribe leader, since you have believed my words, why don't all the tribesmen take the opportunity to evacuate? There is still time now. Hearing this, the tribe leader smiled, Little Rocky. Come to Rocky's side. The tribe leader squatted down and patted Rocky's shoulder. Sometimes, if you want to survive, you have to give up something. You may not understand this sentence now, but you will understand it in the future. Hearing this, the chief stood up and said, I won't disturb you from practicing. But it's best not to consume too much energy recently, just in case. Rocky nodded. Haza wanted to say something, but the chief had already taken him away. After the two left, Rocky smiled. Abandon. He knew what the chief meant very well. If someone really came for the Kuruta tribe, the other party would never give up without leaving some of the tribe members. The fiery red eyes, one of the 7 beauties in the world, the other party finally found the shelter of the Kuruta tribe. If they got nothing, they would not give up easily. Even if they found a new shelter, they still had to live in fear, and the other party might even come to their door quickly. On the contrary, if only a part of them ran away, the other party might get what they wanted and would not continue to embarrass the remaining tribe members. Although this idea is not wrong, Rocky will try his best to protect more Kuruta people. Do your best. Rocky turned his head and released his mind again, and a mysterious totem began to emerge from the ground. This is naturally the word, God, and Rocky carved his own word here, just to set up a ring here. Rocky wants to try it out. How big is the gap between his current level and the first-class masters, and if he can delay a member of the brigade, then he can buy more time for others to escape. When most of the Kuruta people are sent to the escape channel, Rocky will try to attract 1 or 2 brigade members here. In this way, he can test his strength and delay time as much as possible. However, Rocky never jokes with his life. What if the opponent is much stronger than him? Rocky naturally cannot be unprepared. And Rocky's way of dealing with it is to reset his physical condition by modifying the information bar. Even if he is injured, as long as he still has a breath and a little consciousness, Rocky can modify the information bar and revive himself instantly. This is the hidden use of the modifier. Before, when Rocky modified the status, he tried it. The first time was to cut his palm, and the second time Rocky was so cruel that he broke one of his fingers. However, the results of both tests were instant recovery. With the results of these 2 tests, Rocky has confirmed that modifying the information bar can instantly reset his physical condition. All injuries will be instantly recovered. This gives Rocky a new ability in disguise. Of course, Rocky has not tested the situation of broken hands and feet, or fatal injuries, and he dare not test it. But since it can reset the injuries, all injuries should be able to recover instantly. With this blessing, Rocky dared to set up a ring and try to challenge the members of the Phantom Troupe, but it also depends on the specific situation. Rocky has also considered which members of the brigade can be challenged and which ones cannot. The best candidate is naturally Uvajin. As an enhancer, Uvajin is very balanced in all aspects and is the best candidate for testing. The least ideal and least likely members to fight should be Machi and Krolo. The former is doomed to fail if caught, and the latter is impossible to win. Even the opponent's evil IQ may really kill him. Who knows what ability Krolo will use to suddenly catch him and make him unable to move. Except for these 2 people, the others are fine. Of course, Rocky will not fight these people fairly. The depiction of the divine characters is to prepare the stage for Rocky. With the cooperation of these divine characters, Rocky believes that there should be no big problem. His ability will be greatly enhanced, and the opponent will be suppressed. Among the divine characters that Rocky has mastered, there are many trap-like divine characters. Once the conditions are met, they will launch attacks or hinder opponents. There is still time. Rocky will try to make more preparations. Raise your hand. The sword of the wise king flew over from a tree in the distance. It fell into Rocky's hands. The Yasha King's sword slowly emerged behind him, and the 2 manipulator weapons could now be controlled with ease. In addition, what kind of combat power these divine characters can really unleash, even Rocky himself is very curious. At this moment outside the town, Krolo closed the book and looked at the person in front of him. The only one left is Uvajin. He glanced at the other people in the wooden house. The members of the brigade who have arrived now, Franklin, Paknoden, Machi, Phaeton, Nobunaga, Krolo, Finks, and the figure standing in front of Krolo now. And number 8 who was taking a look outside the wooden house, the guy who was assassinated by Silva. Zoldyck early in the original book. At this point in time, he has not been assassinated. However, his ability is similar to Shizuku's ability and cannot be considered a combat member. Uvajin will probably arrive tomorrow morning, Paknodan said. Krolo nodded. Okay, then we'll act tomorrow night. The net has been spread, and the next step is hunting. One of the 7 beauties in the world, fiery red eyes. As time passed by little, a figure pushed open the door of the wooden house. This man was as strong as a bear. Bang! The shabby wooden door was kicked open. Ha ha ha, so many people are waiting for me alone. Sorry, I met some interesting guys when I came here, which delayed me a little. Uvajin said as he threw the bag he was carrying aside, while Nobunaga looked at Uvajin with a dark face. You did it on purpose. Nobunaga gently patted the sawdust on his head. That's right. The wooden door that was kicked just now flew directly towards him and was smashed by him. The next second, he suddenly drew his sword and slashed at Uvajin fiercely. Uvajin's thoughts instantly gathered on his arm and faced Nobunaga's sword. Boom, buzz, buzz. The aftermath of the fight raised the dust on the ground. Uvajin smiled and said, "It's intentional, so what?" Nobunaga's face became even uglier. Looking at Uvajin catching the blade with his bare hands, everyone else smiled. These 2 guys won't be happy unless they fight. Nobunaga really wants to kill Uvajin, so why does he use the back of the knife? And Uvajin has no doubt that Nobunaga uses the edge of the knife. If it's the edge of the knife, catching the blade with bare hands. Wait for one hand to be chopped off. Captain, when will we start the action? Although I just arrived, I'm so excited now. Uvajin asked Krolo after he and Nobunaga separated. Krolo seemed not to have seen the scene just now, but just raised his head lightly. In the evening. After getting the answer, Uvajin didn't say anything else, and sat down to rest. Uvajin takes the mission of the brigade very seriously. No matter what kind of mission it is, he will adjust his state before starting. Then perform the mission with the most perfect attitude. Night falls soon. At this time, in the Kuruta tribe, the chief did not sleep, but sat there feeling inexplicably flustered. This feeling has lasted since the sun set until now. Maybe something will happen tonight. Single quote. While thinking about it, there was a sound of wind chimes outside. And it was not just one wind chime, but the sound of a bunch of wind chimes shaking wildly. The chief suddenly turned his head and looked in the direction of the window, and a white light lit up in the southwest of the village. This light was invisible to ordinary people, but for Nen, it was like turning the sky into daylight in that second. Someone triggered the warning trap. Bang! Rocky's door was opened, and Rocky rushed out and stood in front of the chief. The chief looked at Rocky and nodded. The enemy is coming, Rocky. I'll notify all the tribesmen to evacuate. Grandpa Chief, I haven't exercised for a long time, it's time to exercise my old bones. The chief looked at Rocky. I have destroyed the god cave of the Kuruta tribe. Little Rocky, now you are the god inheritance of the Kuruta tribe, don't die. If you have a chance, just run away, no tribesman will blame you. Although Rocky was in a heavy mood at the moment, he would not cry here. The chief had already realized it. He had no reason to stop it. Bang! The window shattered, the Sage King's sword flew out, and the next second the white crystal flashed instantly, and he grabbed the hilt directly. Rocky, who had just appeared in the phantom, threw the Sage King's sword again, and it only flashed twice before disappearing directly from sight. Seeing this scene, the chief was stunned. It's only been a short time, that kid, his ability has improved so much. With a relieved smile, the chief turned around, opened the door, and walked towards the barrier-like defense line left by the Kuruta tribe. At the same time, the Kuruta tribe Nen who had been arranged by the chief in advance. A total of 12 people plus Gao Yu. 5 of them rushed towards the barrier-like defense line, and the rest quickly notified other tribesmen and took all the tribesmen to the evacuation site. However, both Rocky and the chief underestimated the strength of Phantom Troop. They did not invade from just one direction. After the first white light appeared, 4 more lights appeared in succession in almost 5 seconds. It means that the enemy invaded from 4 different directions at the same time. Among them, the southwest direction invaded the fastest. In the dense forest, 2 figures still rushed towards the Kuruta tribe at an amazing speed. The 2 were Uvajin and Nobunaga. As a death squad, all they need to do is attract attention. Swish. Flashed by. What was that just now? Nen, Uvajin asked. Hearing this, Nobunaga's figure caught up from behind and said slowly, "It doesn't look like it, but it should be some kind of warning thought. I didn't expect that the guy hiding in such a place would know such a clever way to use thought." The figure in front suddenly stopped while he was talking. With a roar, a log fell from the sky, tied with a rope and smashed like a heavy hammer. What's more surprising is that there is thought on it. Uvajin's eyes narrowed slightly, and he punched directly. Boom! The log was directly blasted into pieces, and the air on it dissipated. I am more interested in these guys who want to hide now. How does this device do it? Nobunaga, who had already opened the circle, frowned. It's so strange that thoughts can stay in trees, rocks, and all seemingly inconspicuous places. And if it weren't for the circle, I'm afraid it would be difficult for Ning to find it. Uvajin grabbed a stone and threw it directly in a certain direction. The huge tree was easily pierced by a small stone, and the word, God, left on the tree disappeared instantly. Ha ha ha, interesting, too interesting, let's go. I can't wait to fight these guys. The two moved forward quickly. Along the way, Uvajin only relied on a handful of stones to break all the traps along the way. 3 minutes later, the two stopped, looking at the air wall that had been activated in front of him. A faint mind formed a barrier, blocking the way. Seeing this, Uvajin frowned. Nobunaga stepped aside, and Uvajin got ready, and the mind gathered instantly. Super Destruction Fist. Boom! The word, God, in the barrier instantly dissipated, and the air wall was directly lifted. Uvajin curled his lips and said, "Tisk. Is this the only defense? Waste my super destructive punch." The aftermath of this punch even blasted a 4 or 5 meter wide mark on the ground behind the barrier. A thick smoke was raised. The noise here was so loud that the members of the brigade in other directions were speechless. Although Uvajin would make a noise once he was discovered, this noise was too loud. At the entrance of the passage, Rocky, who put down a little girl from the Kuruta tribe, looked to the southwest. Rocky saw clearly the light released by the disappearance of the divine character. The divine character used for defense was so easily broken. Time was a little too fast. Rocky estimated it to be 20 minutes before, but now only about 5 minutes have passed. It was only 5 minutes, and Rocky's plan was only less than 1/10 executed. In this case, the enemy has already broken through the barrier and started to attack the inside of the village. The situation is not good. Rocky put down the little girl and immediately ran out again, rushing towards the direction of the next house, hoping to evacuate these people as quickly as possible. On the other side, Uvajin and Nobunaga, who took the lead in breaking through the barrier. They have unknowingly found a house at the outermost edge of the village. But there is no one in the house. Did the noise make these guys escape? Uvajin touched his head, and Nobunaga frowned. Even if the noise was loud, it would be impossible for ordinary people to react quickly and escape from the distance of the road just now. According to the speed of the two people, these people can only escape less than 100 meters at most. But there is no sound around. If it were just ordinary people, then the reaction would be too fast, just like a well-trained army. This is unreasonable. As Uvajin and Nobunaga were walking towards the room, a figure suddenly appeared, and the sharp blade slashed directly towards Uvajin's throat. Ding! The blade broke, and the figure that passed by stopped behind Uvajin, and then looked at the dagger in his hand in surprise. It was actually broken. I was attacking by surprise, and the other party had almost no defense, and only relied on his mind to block his knife. Ah, it's really an unexpected sneak attack. Uvajin touched his neck, and the smile on his face didn't look like the expression of a sneak attack at all. Obviously he had noticed it a long time ago. Kachikaka. Uvajin was excited now as he gently clenched his fist and his bones creaked. Nobunaga on the side suddenly said, "Uvajin, remember the captain's order, don't mess around." Uvajin waved his hand, "I know. Don't worry, I won't kill this guy. The purpose of this beauty hunting operation is not to kill people, but to obtain the red eye. And there is a very important condition to obtain the red eye. It is not possible to kill the people of the Kuruta tribe directly, but it is necessary to anger multiple parties. Stimulate the opponent's emotions and let the opponent open the red eye. As long as the red eye is opened and the opponent is killed at this time, the opponent's red eye can be preserved. This is the mission goal of Phantom Troop this time. If you kill directly, and the opponent does not open the red eye, then it is equivalent to wasting a Kuruta tribe member. Suddenly Uvajin made a move, and the terrifying explosive power like a cannonball made him approach the opponent rapidly. Boom! A punch smashed the ground and smashed a huge hole directly. The Kuruta man almost didn't dodge, and was only slightly affected by Uvajin's thoughts. He also felt that the parts of his body that were hit seemed to have completely lost all consciousness. Just one round of fighting, the gap was already despairing. His body couldn't stop shaking. Seeing this, Uvajin was a little dissatisfied. Hey, hey. Are you scared like this? You are too useless. Okay, Uvajin, stop playing, time is running out, so catch him as soon as possible. Nobunaga said, and Uvajin nodded to indicate that it was okay. He was not interested in this kind of coward, and at this time suddenly a cold voice sounded. Ah, it's been a long time since we last moved. Who will go first? Two little brats. Nobunaga slowly turned around and looked at a short old man who came out of the forest. However, at this moment, the other party was naked, with slightly bulging muscles, like an exaggerated shape of a bodybuilding athlete. What surprised Nobunaga even more was that it was a pair of red eyes. Look at that red, it is indeed worthy of being one of the 7 beauties in the world. It is amazing. Although it is just the eyes, it seems that countless stars are dyed red. Unique beauty. Swish. Nobunaga slowly pulled out the blade and looked at the other party calmly, then I'll do it. I want your fiery red eyes. The strong airflow spread out instantly when the mind energy burst out. At the same time, around the Kuruta village, the phantom troupe members in various places are constantly advancing and have basically broken the barrier. Hunting. The screams kept ringing in the forest. There were phantom troupe people in the southwest, northeast, northwest, and southeast. Basically, the entire Kuruta village was completely surrounded. No way out was left. At this moment, Rocky judged where these people had arrived based on the screams. They probably all entered the outskirts of the village. The Kuruta village was not too big to begin with, and now there might be enough time to save 1 or 2 Kuruta families in the center of the village. He glanced at the time. 7 minutes. It was only 7 minutes. Rocky's plan had to be suspended because the nearest scream was less than 100 meters away. At the moment, we can only think about the direction of the escape route. There is still a distance of more than 1,000 meters from the village, which is still a safe area that has not been discovered. Rocky came to the entrance of the passage and looked at Piro. Piro, you go first. Piro gritted his teeth fiercely, and he had already cried like a tearful man, and he was also extremely angry. The tribesmen were massacred, but he could not do anything. There are still a few families waiting here. From the beginning to now, Rocky has only saved 5 families, with only nearly 20 people. There are 5 little ghosts and 17 adult Kuruta tribesmen. You leave now, I'm going to blow up this passage. After the excavation of the passage was completed, explosives were buried. There are explosives at the other end of the passage and even in the canyon on the escape route. Piro, what about you? Rocky smiled and said, I'll try to stop them for a while. Piro opened his mouth and wanted Rocky to join him. Don't worry, you've also seen that I have special abilities, which are not comparable to yours, don't worry. Every second is important at this time. Rocky doesn't plan to say anything more, and urges these people to leave quickly. After everyone enters the passage, Rocky waits quietly. After waiting for everyone to pass through the passage and send a signal on the other side, he will immediately blow up the passage. However, not long after, there was a rustling sound. Rocky turned around suddenly. Have you found this place? Suddenly, Yao Yu rushed out, and he was standing at the entrance of the passage. Rocky, why are you still here? Didn't the patriarch arrange for you to escape? Go quickly. Rocky shook his head. I will stop them with you and get some for others. Tear. The blood formed an arc in the air, and the scattered blood beads fell at Rocky's feet. Rocky lowered his head and looked at the blood at his feet. Raising his head, his forehead was covered with cold sweat. His right hand was torn off, and the figure who appeared on the other side casually threw the crushed arm aside. Ah, I thought there was no one in this direction, but I didn't expect there was a passage. What is this passage? An escape passage? You guys really thought it through. You actually prepared an escape passage in advance. Rocky raised his head and looked at the guy who was less than 10 meters away from him. Uvajin. Chi. Powerful chi, wrapped around Uvajin. Just the chi that was emitted made him feel a strong sense of oppression. It was as if he was suffocating, and a pair of invisible hands grabbed his neck, making it impossible for him to breathe easily. Rocky's eyes slowly expanded. Is this the feeling of oppression from a first-class nen? It's really a bit too scary. Good expression. Suddenly, Uvajin stared at Rocky, and felt his chi and was able to remain calm, even as a little kid. This made Uvajin very appreciative. Uncle, can you still stand up? The face of Gao Yu, whose arm was torn off, was pale, and blood was constantly flowing. In just a few seconds, Gao Yu was about to lose too much blood and faint. Rocky, you go first and I'll cover you. Hearing this, Gao Yu was stunned for a second, covering his wound to try to slow down the bleeding. Rocky, what are you talking about? Rocky looked at Gao Yu. Trust me, you go first and I'll stop him. Bang! Uvajin just took a step forward and the ground suddenly seemed to be crushed by something very heavy. It suddenly sank. Boy, do you think you can stop me? Although you are calm and this is worth praising, you are too whimsical. Raising his hand, the Sage King's sword appeared in Rocky's hand, and the long sword was pointed in the direction of Uvajin. What? You don't dare to fight me one-on-one. I am also a nen user. At this moment, Uvajin was temporarily absent-minded. I didn't expect a little kid to use nen. This is really unexpected. Ha ha ha, not bad. You have mastered nen at such a young age, but a beginner like you doesn't understand what nen is at all. At this moment, Gao Yu looked at the sword in Rocky's hand. Sword. Manipulator. When did Rocky develop this ability? How long has he been studying nen? He actually developed nen. Didn't the clan leader stop him? A beginner's ability to develop nen will never be too strong. Under normal circumstances, Rocky should be urged to practice nen and wait until he is stronger before developing nen. However, Gao Yu did not think that there is a possibility that Rocky has reached the requirements for developing nen, so the clan leader did not stop him from developing nen. But this possibility was automatically ignored by Gao Yu. Let's go, uncle. Don't waste time, every second is crucial. The firm eyes of the storyteller Rocky shocked Gao Yu. Believe me, hearing Rocky say this twice in a row, Gao Yu actually felt a sense of trust in his heart. You are not allowed to die. After saying this, Gao Yu went directly into the passage. But Uvajin stood there without moving. Rocky frowned. Aren't you going to stop him? No need, he is just a waste. It's not too late to catch up after you are dealt with. You can delay me for 3 seconds at most. However, Rocky smiled when he heard this. Putting away the sword in his hand, Uvajin frowned when he saw this action. What? Are you giving up? The little devil who materialized, chose to materialize the sword. Stupid choice. Single quote. Uvajin said in his heart. But Rocky said, you are much older than me, it is not fair to fight one-on-one. I have another condition. I don't know if you dare to meet it. It was a slightly provocative statement. Uvajin also sneered and saw Rocky's little thoughts. But he didn't intend to refuse, just take it as one of the fun of this hunting. It would be better to let the guy escape just now, because this might catch more Kuruta people who escaped through this passage. Uvajin just looks straightforward, but in fact he is also very thoughtful. Okay, tell me. Rocky pointed to a place. There is a good venue about 500 meters in that direction. We will fight there, which will be more advantageous for me. Okay. When Uvajin heard Rocky say that it was advantageous for him, he agreed without hesitation. If he didn't have a little confidence in the challenge of an 8-year-old kid, he would not be Uvajin. Even if it was advantageous for Rocky, Uvajin was confident that the kid couldn't even break his defense. Came to the ring prepared by Rocky. And now the opponent is also Uvajin, the most ideal opponent. But now the only uncertain factor is time. It must be as soon as possible. The passage has not been blasted yet. Once it is discovered by other Phantom Troop people, they can quickly catch up. So Rocky needs to delay for a few minutes, then escape and blast the passage. Is this the venue that is advantageous for you? It doesn't seem to be anything special. Uvajin carefully observed the surroundings, but on the surface he seemed to be completely unconcerned. You will know soon. Rocky took out the sword of the Wise King again. This is a formal fight with the world's first class or even top nen. Now we can know how big the gap is. Rocky let out a sigh of relief. Hey, kid, is that guy your relative? Rocky was stunned for a moment. So what? Nothing. Uvijin waved his hand. Just now he seemed to want to save an old man, but that old man has been killed by my companions. I want to ask if that old man is your grandfather or something. What? Rocky's eyes turned red instantly. This is the red eyes that opened when Rocky was out of control and his emotions fluctuated in an instant. Old man, doesn't that mean it's the clan leader? Grandpa. Ha ha ha, sure enough, you are angry, your eyes are mine. In an instant, Uvijin has appeared in front of Rocky, and a series of smoke has risen behind him. Boom, the sound of the explosion caused by the movement was heard. At this moment, Uvijin's fist had already hit Rocky's neck hard, ready to break Rocky's neck directly with one punch. If he kills instantly, he can keep the red eyes. As he watched his fist getting closer and closer to Rocky, Uvijin's smile grew stronger. Suddenly, white crystal fragments appeared in Uvijin's eyes. What is this? Bang! A sound like glass shattering rang out. The next second, Rocky's body exploded and turned into countless crystal fragments. Then, in front of Uvijin, a long sword was flying upwards. Uvijin stared at the sword. A hand suddenly appeared on the hilt, and Uvijin's eyes shrank rapidly. A figure appeared out of thin air, quickly grasped the sword and turned it over, and punched. Boom! It hit Uvijin's face directly. However, the punch that hit most of the chi was blocked by Uvijin's chi. The reaction force made Rocky's small body bounce out like a ball. Uvijin stood there and touched his nose, which had already turned a little purple. Impossible. Although he didn't gather his energy to defend himself, the strength of a manipulator's energy is definitely not enough to break his training, not to mention that the other party is just an 8-year-old kid. Rocky looked at his fist after landing, and 2 fingers were broken. This is when he turned on his red eyes and transformed into an enhancer nen. This is Phantom Troupe, this is Uvijin. Chapter 31. Rocky used his strength to temporarily straighten the finger. He endured the piercing pain. It was clearly an enhancer collision, but facing the top enhancer nen Uvijin, he couldn't even break the defense. And he got hurt instead. It seems that if he wants to hurt Uvijin, he must use the flow to create an advantage. Otherwise, it will be difficult to break the defense. The difference in the amount of psychic energy is too big. Uvijin rubbed his nose and looked at Rocky in the distance. I didn't expect that a little kid like you could actually hurt me. For your age, it's already very good. Uvijin narrowed his eyes and looked at Rocky carefully. From the way Rocky took out the sword, it was 100% certain that he was a manipulator. But the punch just now, according to Rocky's psychic energy, could not cause any harm to him at all, but it hit him again. Although it was just the tip of his nose that was slightly purple, Uvijin already felt something was wrong. If Rocky was an enhancer, he could do this. But he couldn't be. It's a bit weird. Boy, Uvijin said in his heart. And the next second, the red in Rocky's eyes gradually faded. Rocky, who successfully controlled his emotions, took the initiative to end the red eyes mode. Although the amount of energy in this state would increase a lot, it was still stronger to use his most common state in this place. Watching Rocky's red eyes fade, Uvijin's face became a little uglier. Because Rocky could not kill the opponent after removing the red eyes, he needed to catch the opponent. Otherwise, if he just killed the opponent, then the red eyes would be wasted. Although he was not very interested in red eyes, Uvijin could probably imagine that the red eyes of an 8-year-old kid would be more precious, especially when such a kid had such a strange ability. At that moment just now, Rocky suddenly accelerated and dodged his attack by some unknown method. At this moment, Rocky didn't know what Uvijin was thinking. He let go of the sword of the wise king in his hand, and the sword body emitted a light of mind, floating beside Rocky. Uvijin frowned. First, a sword was materialized, and then it was controlled by mind. What kind of ability development is this? Is the person who guided this kid to develop Nen mentally ill? Whoosh! Suddenly, the sword flew directly towards Uvijin. He casually stepped back and dodged the attack, and the sword turned a circle behind him and stabbed directly at Uvijin from another angle again. After dodging many times in a row, Uvijin squinted his eyes and smiled. Boy, your ability is interesting. You are the ability user of Manipulator. Hearing this, Rocky did not answer, but even if he did not answer, Uvajin still saw the answer from Rocky's unchanged eyes. You were right. As a manipulator, you use the power of an emitter to control your weapon. Are you an idiot? The moment Uvajin said the last word, Rocky disappeared instantly. Apparition. He appeared directly beside Uvajin, holding the sword of the Wise King and slashing at Uvajin quickly. The energy gathered on the blade. Uvajin's eyes flickered rapidly, and he noticed Rocky's position with his peripheral vision, and immediately turned his hands to block. The moment the blade chopped on Uvajin's arm, the collision of thoughts actually made a sound similar to metal collision and cutting. Zzzzz. You could even vaguely see a spark bursting from the blade. So hard. Single quote. The energy on Uvajin's arm increased instantly, and the powerful force shook Rocky's sword out of his hand. And the next second, Uvajin's big hand grabbed Rocky directly. Rocky's chi hit the blade, and the blade slipped out of his hand. Rocky's chi was very thin now. If a hand with a lot of mind chi touched it, he would be crippled if not dead. Apparition. Wow. The broken white crystal appeared again, and Uvajin grabbed it in vain. Rocky, who appeared in the distance holding the sword of the Wise King, turned over and landed steadily. Uvajin looked at Rocky in surprise at this moment, as the ability you just used teleportation. That's right, it's teleportation, not speed, but teleporting directly to the position of the weapon. How did this kid develop such a heaven-defying ability? Rocky exhaled lightly and adjusted his state. From the beginning of the battle to now, Rocky has been very nervous, and this kind of nervousness will cause Rocky's chi to not reach the best state. He can't even use all his chi. Now he doesn't seem to be so nervous. Relying on the apparition, even if he is defeated, he will not be killed instantly. What is there to be afraid of? Rocky raised his head. You will know soon. Bang! The body exploded and turned into white crystals. The sword flew out in an instant and rushed straight to Uvajin. Uvajin punched Rocky's sword directly. If it was a master of the same level, then Uvajin would be looking for death. But what's the use of a sword to bully a kid like Rocky? Still couldn't break Uvajin's defense. The moment the fist collided with the sword, Uvajin's eyes shrank slightly. It was different from the weak power he imagined, on the contrary, it was a very good power. The collision of mind energy burst out a strong aftermath that spread out. Rocky's figure also appeared at the same time, and he grabbed the sword of the Wise King directly, and the moment he and the sword were about to be thrown out, Rocky disappeared again, turned into a white crystal and disappeared. This is the sword of the Wise King flying backwards and circling in the air. The next second Rocky grabbed the long sword again, turned around and threw it directly at Uvajin. Uvajin jumped sideways to avoid it, and punched hard at the back of the hilt. I have roughly understood your ability. You can move to the position of the sword instantly, right? So my target should not be the sword, but the back of the sword. Single quote. Uvajin smiled in his heart, thinking that this punch would most likely hit. However, Rocky did not appear after the sword flew past. Instead, Rocky appeared instantly after it flew past, grabbed the sword of the Wise King, and stabbed Uvajin's back fiercely at close range. The way the long sword flew out of his hand to control the flying sword made the sword of the Wise King stab Uvajin's back. However, Uvajin's reaction was very quick, and he directly focused his thoughts to defend his back. Before Rocky landed, his body disappeared again. Scattered white crystals floated around Uvajin. And Uvajin frowned. These crystals seemed a little strange. In a flash, Rocky directly started to flash continuously, and the word, God, gradually appeared on the surrounding trees. A series of white lights appeared instantly around Uvajin's body. Apparition requires a materialized weapon to determine the coordinates, but when the sword disintegrated into white crystals, Rocky found that these white crystals were also regarded as swords. In other words, coordinates. Rocky can flash directly. At this moment, Uvajin felt that more than a dozen places on his body were attacked at almost the same time. These attacks were not painful, but suddenly a strong gust of wind came from behind. Rocky appeared on a tree 20 meters away without knowing when. Then Rocky threw a huge sword at him. The speed of the sword was not fast, and Uvajin was still wondering what Rocky was going to do. And the next second, 7 consecutive flashes formed a straight line in the air, and the white figures left by Rocky's flashes appeared in the air one after another. Ding, buzzing, a crystal emitting white light. Inserted into Uvajan's chest, blood dripped from the blade. Uvajan looked up at Rocky holding the huge sword with his eyes wide open. Just a teleportation. He could actually attack like this, increasing his strength through continuous teleportation. He held the huge sword tightly with both hands, but still failed to block the impact. The blade almost penetrated his body by nearly 10 centimeters. Uvajan could feel that if the attack just now had shifted a little bit, if it had pierced his heart, he would probably have died. He was a top enhancer Nen, but he was almost killed by a little ghost. The pain not only did not make Uvajan weak, but it seemed to stimulate him. In an instant, like a wild beast, he pulled out the sword from his chest and grabbed the sword and pulled it back, trying to catch Rocky. At this moment, the sword shattered and turned into white crystals and dissipated. Almost at the same time, the crystals recondensed at a distance of about 10 meters, and then Rocky appeared. Rocky was panting heavily. He was sweating all over. He had consumed a lot of his energy and it was difficult for him to recover. His condition was not very good. This move was the strongest attack Rocky could perform now. He consumed almost 2/3 of his energy, but he still couldn't kill Uvajan. He couldn't even injure him. Uvajan should have stood up and his energy was not affected at all. On the contrary, the furious Uvajan's eyes were no longer calm. If he attacked again, Uvajan would not care about the mission. He wanted to kill Rocky. A Nen who could leave wounds on him, at this age. Killing such a guy would make people feel more happy. Feeling Uvajan's increasingly terrifying energy, Rocky was adjusting his condition as quickly as possible to recover to the best. "Ah, I saw an incredible scene." Suddenly another voice sounded, and Rocky's expression suddenly changed. However, before he could turn around, Rocky felt as if the skin on his arms, chest and calves was cut open by something. His subconscious mind surged and covered his whole body, making a sizzling sound. Rocky looked carefully. He didn't know when he was trapped by a transparent and almost invisible thread. His body couldn't move. Machi walked out slowly, pulling the thread in his hand. "This kid is quite powerful. It can actually hurt a monster like you." Uvajan's face looked even worse now. Anyone who was seen embarrassed would probably not feel very good. "Why are you here?" Machi pulled the thread in his hand and said, "There is such a big commotion here, of course I have to come and take a look." "Let go of that kid, I still have to continue fighting him." This made Machi speechless. "Are you an idiot? Why do you want to let go after you've caught him?" At this moment, Uvajan didn't know whether Rocky could perform apparition in this state, and Uvajan was thinking about it. Suddenly, the sword of the wise king appeared beside Machi. It stabbed towards Machi's neck quickly, and Machi's reaction was also very fast. He bent back and locked his eyes on the sword that flew out from the blind spot of his vision. He was slightly stunned. The ability to control weapons in the air. Snap! With a cracking sound, a white crystal suddenly condensed. Rocky appeared in front of Machi, holding the sword of the wise king, and stabbed quickly. At the same time, Machi felt the silk thread in his hand loosen. Escape. How did this kid do it? Swish. Machi turned over and supported himself with his hands, and kicked Rocky with his legs quickly. The speed was so fast that it should have been able to hit. But Rocky's body suddenly flashed, disappeared and reappeared and went directly from the left to the right. What? Machi sensed the fluctuation of chi on the other side, but it was too late to react. A knife pierced Machi's abdomen. At this moment, Rocky was also stunned. He thought that it could only cause a little damage, but he didn't expect that it could be directly pierced. That's right, not everyone is a perverted enhancer like Uvajan. Machi is not an enhancer. Hey, boy, you have so many tricks. At this moment, Rocky's eyes shrank rapidly, and the voice behind him made Rocky's hair stand up instantly. I caught you this time. A big hand grabbed Rocky's leg, and a terrifying thought was coming. Instantly, a punch directly hit a sonic boom. Rocky turned his head and caught a glimpse of the fist bombarding him. Super destructive punch. A blow from the top enhancer Nen Uvajan. If he was hit, it would not be as simple as death. At this moment, Uvajan had completely ignored the leader's request, and now he just wanted to smash Rocky, the little fool, with one punch. At this moment, Rocky's eyes were locked on Uvajan. When being caught, Rocky could not perform the apparition intact. But not being able to perform it intact does not mean that he cannot perform it. Crack! A crisp sound of bone breaking was heard. Uvijin's eyes shrank rapidly. Swish! A trace of red blood floated out from the corner of his eye and fell along his cheek. At the same time, with the release of the super destruction fist, although it seemed that nothing was hit, a terrifying roar was still heard. The strong airflow directly destroyed 5 or 6 trees in the distance like an air cannon. Uvijin, who stopped, raised his hand to wipe the blood from the corner of his eye, and a wound appeared on his left face. A wound of 10 centimeters. The blood was constantly flowing out. Turning his head to think about his left hand, a foot with a calf was caught in his hand. Uvijin's brows trembled a few times. This guy actually abandoned his legs and teleported. Turning his head, Rocky supported his body with a sword, his face extremely pale. Machi turned over and covered his abdomen, one hand was quickly stitching himself. What's wrong with this kid? Why is he so fast? Machi's expression was not as relaxed as before. Uvijin's low voice sounded, "That's not speed, it's teleportation. This kid's ability is to teleport to the position of his weapon." Wipe the blood off his face, although it would flow again after wiping. But Uvijin didn't expect that this kid would take advantage of the time when he used the super destruction fist to concentrate a lot of mental energy to attack him. Otherwise, the opponent would never hurt him. Throwing the broken leg aside, Uvijin gritted his teeth and said, "Your reaction just now was good. You saved my life, but how much fighting power do you have now, kid?" Machi was also very surprised. Is this really just a little devil? At that time, he made such a decisive choice, not only saving his own life, but also hurting Uvijin, although it was not a fatal injury. Rocky glanced at Machi, who had been stitched, and then looked at Uvijin, whose chi was still stable, still so powerful. Raise your hand. Throw the sword of the wise king in your hand directly at Uvijin. At this moment, Uvijin sneered, is he trying to fight to the death? The long sword came straight at him. Uvijin grabbed it and stared at the hilt. He was waiting for Rocky. If Rocky dared to apparate to this position, he could guarantee that he would hit Rocky with a punch in the first place. The super destruction punch obviously could not be used. Rocky's teleportation was too restrained by his super destruction punch. But even without the super destruction punch, his strong basic attack and defense capabilities were enough to crush Rocky. The next second, Machi was stunned and turned his head to look at the distance. Rocky was flashing madly. Every time he flashed, the word, God, would appear on the tree next to him. These words were carved in advance. It can help Rocky to use his abilities quickly and consume less energy. And between Rocky's flashes, although the interval was short, Machi could clearly see Rocky's figure. His foot recovered. Before, one leg was broken due to the forced teleportation, but now it was instantly recovered. What kind of ability is this? Uvijin ran away. Machi's voice suddenly sounded, and Uvijin only reacted at this time and looked into the distance. A white light quickly shuttled through the forest and disappeared completely in a few breaths. This speed was even faster than the previous fight with him. Uvijin squeezed hard, and the sword in his hand instantly shattered into white crystals and dissipated. On the other side, Rocky, who had already rushed 100 meters away, grabbed the Sage King's sword with his backhand, and the Yaksha King's sword, and the two swords flashed alternately and rapidly. Machi just jumped up and prepared to chase Rocky. At this moment, Uvijin, who was beside him, suddenly burst out with a strong energy. He directly rushed her out. "Boy, want to run? I won't let you succeed." Boom! The ground instantly sank, and the extremely brutal force made Uvijin chase Rocky straight like a cannonball. All the trees that got in the way were destroyed along the way. There was no turning at all, whether it was trees or rocks, they were all smashed directly. However, this limited Uvijin's speed. Rocky was even faster. In a few breaths, he almost slipped away from Uvijin's eyes. Sparks and lightning all the way, Rocky just finished flashing, and threw the weapon again at the fastest speed while controlling the weapon with mind to fly faster and farther. He flashed continuously all the way. With the help of these divine characters, Rocky consumed very little mind. He even modified the state of his body just now. Directly recovered to the best state. Not only did the broken legs and broken fingers recover, Rocky felt 100 times more energetic now. The escape route planned in advance also made Rocky's way smooth. Although the fight with Uvijin this time did not fully meet expectations, it was interrupted by Machi, who suddenly appeared in the middle. Once a second person appeared in the battle, then it would be absolutely impossible to continue the fight. In a one-on-one situation, Rocky could still rely on the things he prepared in advance to delay the fight, but in a one-on-two situation, Rocky would have no chance of winning no matter which two members of the brigade he faced. Now he was running away like crazy. Although the fight with Uvijin was interrupted, Uncle Kagetsu should have escaped after such a long delay. And fighting with Uvijin in another place was not without other intentions. Leading Uvijin away from the direction of the escape passage also prevented other members of the brigade from discovering him. "Stop right there, you kid." Uvijin's terrifying roar came from behind, and Rocky covered his ears immediately. Otherwise, his eardrums would probably be broken by such a roar. With just such a simple roar, Uvijin behind him had already closed the distance with Rocky. Even less than 100 meters away. Rocky didn't expect Uvijin to be able to interfere with him like this. This was slightly different from his plan. Rocky looked at the passage that had appeared in his field of vision. He gritted his teeth gently. He rushed into the cave headfirst, and Uvijin behind him almost followed. Almost as soon as Rocky entered the cave, Uvijin rushed in the next second. However, Uvijin was stunned for a moment because Rocky stood in front and did not continue to flee. "Don't you plan to continue to run away, kid?" Uvijin smiled and his expression became a little strange. Although the light in the cave was not very good, Uvijin clearly saw that Rocky's leg had recovered. This kid actually has the ability to heal himself. A broken leg was healed in a blink of an eye. No wonder he dared to give up his leg so decisively before. He didn't expect there was such a trick. This is really an unexpected gain. Catch this kid and hand him over to the leader, then he doesn't have to worry about missing arms and legs in the future. The leader can heal himself. Thinking of this, Uvijin calmed down a lot and decided to catch the kid in front of him. Rocky looked at Uvijin. "You followed me in, didn't you think it was a trap?" Hearing this, Uvijin smiled and said, "Even if it's a trap, what? Can your trap hurt me?" With powerful energy surrounding his body, Uvijin now understood that although Rocky was just a kid, he was not simple. He knew how to concentrate his strength to attack, and also knew that when he used the super destruction fist, the thoughts of other parts were weaker. If it weren't for Rocky's insufficient thoughts, he couldn't compare with himself at all. Then I'm afraid the situation of the battle would be different. But now, as long as he maintains this super strong energy, Rocky's attack is not enough to hurt him at all. Rocky suddenly smiled. "It's really not easy to hurt you, but I don't know how to bury you here." The moment the voice fell, Uvijin's face suddenly sank. "This kid won't." Rocky's fingers gently moved downwards, and the sword of the wise king that was inserted on the cliff outside the cave suddenly flew out, falling straight down. Without the help of the word God, Rocky usually needs to consume a lot of mental energy to control the weapon remotely, and the power is still pitifully small. Not to mention the speed. But it's different now. The power of falling can save a lot of Rocky's mental energy, which can be used to make the sword fly faster. It pierced straight into the fuse piled on one side of the cave entrance. The sparks from the friction between the sword blade and the stone directly ignited the fuse. Boom! Accompanied by a dull explosion, the cave began to crumble. Large pieces of stone fell, and this small passage began to crack. Uvijin was stunned. "Boy, do you want to die with me?" Rocky shook his head. "Who wants to die with you?" Uvijin suddenly felt bad and suddenly rushed towards Rocky at an amazing speed. A hand grabbed Rocky, and Rocky looked at him with regret, the hand that was so close. "Sorry." Snap. Rocky turned into a white crystal and disappeared in an instant. His figure appeared outside the cave. He held the Shanwang sword in one hand and spun it quickly, throwing it directly over the cliff. Swish! Rocky's figure suddenly flashed. He flashed quickly towards the cliff, flashing 32 times in a row. Rocky came to the top of the cliff and looked back. This time, it only took 32 flashes. It seems that with the improvement of strength, not only the distance of the apparition has increased, but also the speed has become much faster. One day, he will be able to teleport. At this moment, Rocky saw another figure rushing over. It seemed to be Machi. Although Machi sutured his wound, his speed was naturally much slower than that of himself who had prepared in advance and Uvijin who was in a rage. Machi, who came, looked at the cave entrance that was still collapsing. He was stunned. Uvijin, that guy, wouldn't. He fell into a trap. But even if it was a trap, the little devil was a little surprising. He actually buried himself and Uvijin in the mountain together. This is a situation where there is no chance of survival. However, at this moment, Machi suddenly felt a strange sight. He raised his head. Machi's eyes suddenly shrank. Although the distance was several hundred meters, it was not so clear. But there was indeed a person standing on the edge of the cliff. That person was the little ghost just now. This little ghost was actually on top, and what about Uvijin? Could it be that Uvijin was buried inside and the little ghost was not buried inside? How did he deceive Uvijin? Machi looked in the direction of Rocky, suddenly jumped up to a height of dozens of meters, and then stepped on the rock wall with one step, trying to jump vertically. However, he suddenly found that the rock wall was extremely smooth. He almost fell down. After falling 5 or 6 meters, he suddenly threw out his flying needle to stabilize his body. However, seeing the other party do this, Rocky smiled. Just stopped in the air for less than a second, suddenly accompanied by the sound of rocks sliding down, Machi fell down again. After falling to the ground, Machi looked up at the place where his flying needle had just pierced. The rock collapsed directly, as fragile as tofu dregs. It couldn't support the weight of a person at all. The unique geographical location here makes these rocks relatively moist, with smooth surfaces and no leverage points, and they are also very easy to break. If you want to use something to make a fixed point on the wall, it is impossible. Instead, it will not be able to withstand excessive pressure and directly cause the rock to collapse. So if you want to climb up, you must be able to remove the rock wall. Like Rocky, but Machi can't jump to a height of several hundred meters at a time. He can only stand below and look at Rocky. Machi is now a little angry, and has never met such a kid. Boom. At this time, a voice came from the collapsed cave in front of him. Is there anyone? Hey, come and help me. Machi heard Uvijin's voice and could only take a fierce look at Rocky's direction and turned his head to start thinking of ways to move the collapsed rubble away. Although Uvijin is very strong and can withstand the pressure brought by the collapse by relying on his mind, there is no place to leverage in that situation, and even Uvijin has no way. He can only be pressed down. It was impossible to catch up now, so the only way was to find a way to rescue Uvijin first. At the same time, Rocky didn't dare to go down to interfere. After all, the result of going down might not be good. Machi's fighting power was not weak. At the same time, Rocky suddenly looked towards the center of the Kuruta tribe. The flames had spread throughout the Kuruta village. From a distance, thick smoke and some flames rose from all over the forest. Just as Rocky turned around and was about to leave, suddenly, Rocky saw a person, Nobunaga of Phantom Troupe, in the center of the Kuruta village, in front of a house that was burning fiercely. This is the home of the chief. Now it has been engulfed by the fire, and many Kuruta people have been captured. Almost half of the Kuruta people did not have time to escape. Nobunaga leaned against a tree, holding a handful of hair in his hand, and a human head was connected to the hair. And the head had a pair of scarlet eyes, staring at the front. Even at the last moment, the expression of the head was still extremely firm. There was no fear at all. Rocky's eyes shook violently, and his body suddenly softened involuntarily. Then Rocky's fiery red eyes reappeared involuntarily. A powerful aura suddenly erupted. The flock of birds on the top of the cliff felt the strong aura full of murderous intent. They flew away in panic in an instant. Hearing the panicked cries of the flock of birds in the air, the Phantom Troop members surrounding the chief's house looked up. Looking in the direction of the killing intent. Under the illumination of the sky-high fire, Rocky's figure between darkness and light on the top of the cliff appeared in everyone's eyes. Crollo's attention was completely attracted by the pair of exquisite red eyes. The fiery red eyes, one of the 7 beauties in the world, are the real 7 beauties. The previous Kuruta people, their fiery red eyes are probably not pure, and the captured Kuruta people, even if their fiery red eyes are stimulated, are probably not as good as this pair. However, now this pair of fiery red eyes seems to be free. Crollo stared in the direction of Rocky. But Rocky paid attention to Nobunaga. Nobunaga, I will come to you soon, Rocky said in a voice that only he could hear. The strong killing intent made Nobunaga stunned for a moment, which was obviously directed at him. Interesting, it seems that there is still a fish that has slipped through the net, the captain. I will catch him back. However, just as Nobunaga was preparing to act, the captain waved his hand, no need. You can't catch up there. Nobunaga was stunned when he heard this, why can't I catch up? There is a cliff hundreds of meters high over there. The cliff cannot be climbed. The other party must have used special abilities to get up there. You can't go up there. It will take about half an hour to take a detour, and the other party has already escaped. There is a canyon behind. If the canyon is blown up, it will be more difficult to chase. Although he was a little unhappy, Nobunaga still obeyed Chrollo's orders. Captain, are you going to let that guy go? Phaeton, who was responsible for activating the fiery eyes of all the captured Kuruta people, said gloomily. Chrollo smiled when he heard this, no. But I saw the map before, and if everything goes well, we can reach a seaside port town on the other side of the forest. These fleeing Kuruta people should want to leave here through that. It is highly unlikely that we can catch up with them by the same route. If we return to the previous town from here and chase them by car, we may be able to reach the town just before they get on the boat. Paknoden, I'll go. Chrollo smiled when he heard this, and looked up at the direction of the cliff where no one had disappeared. No need. There are already many people waiting for them there. If they can still escape like this, they are lucky. Chrollo smiled and took out his mobile phone to make a call. Yeah, a small half of the Kuruta people have escaped, and the direction of their escape is where you are. This is considered to be delivered to the door. I'll leave it to you. After hanging up the phone, Chrollo focused his attention on the captured Kuruta people. At this time, Machi's voice was heard from a distance, Finks, Franklin, come and help, Uvijin is buried in the cave. Machi's voice was heard from a distance. However, when everyone heard this, they were stunned. Who? Uvijin. That guy was trapped. Who did it? Although Uvijin looked like he had no brains, how could a guy who could join the Phantom Troupe really be just a simple guy? Chrollo's expression became a little strange. Let Machi come and tell us what happened. When Machi came over, he told Rocky about the battle between Uvijin. Teleportation. Is this ability really possible? Phaeton was a little unconvinced. Although Nen is strange, not just any ability can be developed. The ability of teleportation is very difficult to develop. It's really difficult to develop this ability. Chrollo also said, and then continued to ask, there should be many prerequisites for use. However, Machi shook his head and said, no. This made Chrollo interested. This is interesting. How could there be no? The only condition is that it can only be moved to the position of one's weapon instantly. This condition is basically nothing for the Nen masters present. Chrollo smiled. It seems that the other party paid a considerable price. If you want to develop this kind of perverted Nen without complicated restrictions, then the only possibility is that the other party has made a very serious oath. Only in this way can this perverted ability be developed. Chrollo turned his head and glanced at Paknoden. Go ask those people and see if you can find any information. Hearing this, Paknoden nodded. Is the captain interested in the ability of this kid? Machi asked with a frown. Chrollo didn't answer but just thought about something silently. This reaction was very telling. It's not surprising that the leader would target such a perverted ability. But the problem is that it's difficult to steal such an ability. And the other party has already escaped. Those people probably can't stop that kid. Chrollo suddenly said. Speaking of those people, the expressions of the Phantom Troupe were different. Each of them was thinking about something. At the same time, Rocky, who was rushing on the road frantically, could easily catch up with Piro and others who had escaped before with the blessing of apparition. Rocky quickly crossed the canyon and detonated the explosives buried in the canyon before. Boom! Franklin and Finks, who were digging Uvijin, looked up at the sky. Feeling the strong vibration, a solemn look flashed in their eyes. If the leader asked them to chase before, they might not be able to catch up now. The other party had obviously made all the preparations in advance. If one of them passed through, the road behind would be blown up, so it would be even more impossible to pursue them. Chrollo sat on a wooden block and read a book. He looked up and forgot about the flames rising from the explosion in the distance. The people of the Kuruta tribe are very cautious. They buried so much gunpowder on the prepared escape route. Does it include the pursuers? After saying that, he lowered his head and continued to read. The members of other brigades were constantly irritating the captured Kurutas. They dismembered their relatives and friends in front of them to arouse their anger, and killed them as soon as the red eyes opened. One after another, the Kurutas were tortured to death. Some were even cut into human sticks. Such a move was naturally from Phaeton. He even seemed to enjoy it and was very interested in torturing the enemy. Rocky, who blew up the canyon, continued to chase the Kurutas who had escaped before. Half an hour later, they finally caught up with these people on a narrow mountain road. The Kurutas now had tears on their faces, and even women and children were trying their best to escape. However, the speed was not fast, but fortunately the road here was rugged and changeable, and it would not be so easy to catch up if the enemy caught up. Rocky. Suddenly a voice sounded. Piro, who was at the end of the team, was helping other tribesmen while observing behind him. He soon found Rocky who was catching up. Piro. Rocky also jumped over, and a long sword arrived first, and then appeared directly in front of Piro. Looking at Rocky's strange ability, Piro seemed to understand why Rocky dared to say that he would stop the enemy. Where are the others? Piro asked directly when they met, but facing this question, Rocky couldn't help but think of the scene of Nobunaga holding a head under the firelight. Probably all dead. Piro's face instantly darkened when he heard this. He opened his mouth and finally just said softly, "I hope you can escape." Did my uncle see it? Piro raised his hand and pointed forward. Several young and strong tribesmen made a simple unit price, carried Gao Yu who had fainted, and were running quickly. Although Uncle Gao Yu lost one hand, he finally survived. Let's go. Rocky patted Piro's shoulder and prepared to follow Piro. Piro looked behind Rocky and said, "Do you think we still have a chance to come back?" The sudden question made Rocky stunned for a moment. "Yes, I will," Piro said worriedly. "I wonder what happened to Kurapika." Rocky smiled. He was lucky. He left the village and escaped a disaster. Piro also realized that the village was attacked 2 days after Kurapika left. Kurapika should have left. Follow the team forward. However, the closer they were to the target town, the more uneasy Rocky felt. It seemed that something was waiting for them ahead. And in this small town by the sea, at the entrance of the forest near the town, a group of people have already driven here. The other party will most likely come from here. There are 3 entrances to the town. This is the most likely place, but don't let go of other places. Arrange people to monitor them. Once they are found, notify others immediately. A bald middle-aged man wearing a white suit and sunglasses ordered the people around him. He took out a tiger finger from the inner bag of his suit and put it on his hand. HMPH. It cost so much to let that group of people take action, but in the end they let so many people go. It seems that Meteor Street is nothing more than that. In the end, we have to clean up the mess ourselves. Boss, there is a call from the other side saying that they are also going to send 2 people over. They hope we can catch a kid named Rocky and don't let him go. The subordinate suddenly spoke up, and was coldly glanced at by the man in the white suit and sunglasses. Do I need to listen to his orders? Don't leave any alive, kill them all. The number of people in this group is not too large, and there are only a dozen of them, but judging from their aura, they are all Nen. Rocky, who was rushing towards this side at this moment, suddenly stopped. The increasingly obvious sense of crisis made Rocky feel that something was wrong. He immediately accelerated and jumped over the top of the team in an instant, and came directly to the front. He raised his hand to signal everyone not to move forward. Seeing Rocky's action, the other tribesmen also stopped. Several young men who were leading the way at the front of the team came forward to ask Rocky, "What's wrong?" Rocky looked back and saw that these 2 guys were the Kuruta tribe members who had dug the passage together before. Although they didn't look very smart, they were more honest and straightforward. This was probably because the unique closed environment of the Kuruta tribe made them not think much. I feel there is danger, and there may be enemies ahead. Originally, Rocky thought he had to explain that although he was only 8 years old as a Nen, it was right for them to listen to him. But the 2 nodded one after another, without refuting Rocky's idea at all. This made Rocky a little confused. Why are they so obedient? Although these people are simple-minded, it doesn't mean that they will listen to anyone. Do you trust me so much? Rocky couldn't help asking curiously. When the two heard this question, even the Kuruta tribe members behind them laughed. The chief said so. A Kuruta woman said with a smile while holding her child, if you encounter danger, it's right to listen to the orders of little Rocky. If the chief is gone, Haza is the chief. If even Haza is gone, then little Rocky is the chief. Another young Kuruta tribe member followed suit and said, the chief said that you are the hope of the Kuruta tribe. Let us listen to you. Although you are young, you are very powerful. These Kuruta youths have already understood this when digging the passage. Rocky can dig side by side with the adults in the tribe who can be called warriors at the forefront. It means that although Rocky is young, he is already the same as the warriors of the Kuruta tribe. Rocky himself didn't know that he had such prestige among the Kuruta tribe. After a few seconds of silence, Rocky nodded, thank you for believing in me. Turning his head, he saw that there was less than 200 meters away from the forest. Rocky thought for a while. I'll go and take a look. If there is any danger, run in that direction. Rocky's eyes passed through the gaps between the leaves and pointed to a very tall tree in the north. The tree was about 700 or 800 meters away from here in a straight line. Everyone, gather at that place. Carefully recalling the map he had seen before, if you go straight from the tree over there, you can directly reach the edge of the town, which is also the port of the town. If you are lucky, there may be a boat. If there is a boat, everyone will get on the boat directly. Don't worry about whether there is a destination. Anyway, take the boat and escape as soon as possible. Don't wait for me. Hearing this, the expressions of the Kuruta people looking at Rocky became more complicated. Obviously, Rocky is only 8 years old. There are only 2 children younger than Rocky, and the others are much older than Rocky. But in this situation, they can only rely on a child like Rocky. Others don't know whether they blame themselves or are grateful to Rocky. The mood is very complicated. Rocky doesn't care, and turns to look at Piro, you know the language of the outside world. If there is any situation, it depends on you to lead everyone. Hearing this, Piro nodded heavily, leave it to me with confidence. He glanced at the stretcher lying on the stretcher, the uncle of this body. If an emergency occurs, leave my uncle behind and run away. He is a Nen, a warrior of the Kuruta tribe. If he knows that he has become a burden, I'm afraid he won't be happy. Hearing this, Piro shook his head, no. I don't want to leave any more people behind. Sure enough, after the bloody initiation, people can grow more. Piro's mind has grown a lot now. Okay, I'll leave it to you. After saying that, Rocky looked at it and touched the distance. Along the way, Rocky's absolute was almost perfect, not a single breath leaked out. When Rocky gradually touched the exit, Rocky clearly felt that there were many eyes gathered in this place. Although he had not yet sensed where these eyes came from, they were all staring at the exit. It seems that there is indeed danger in this town. But Rocky didn't understand, Phantom Troupe people can't be here. If there are Phantom Troupe people here, then the only possibility is that someone in the tribe betrayed the Kuruta tribe. Otherwise, the escape route that has just been determined would not be leaked in such a short time. Rocky wanted to find the enemy hiding in the dark as soon as possible and confirm the other party's identity. If it is really a Phantom Troupe person, it would be bad. At that time, the fate of the entire Kuruta tribe can only be left to fate. One is fine, but if there are 2, Rocky will have no chance of winning and can only run for his life. Time passed bit by bit, Rocky captured the weak breath and condensed, and barely found 2 people. Hiding behind 2 big trees at the exit. Their breath was weak, but Rocky still saw them. Not from the brigade. Single quote. If they were members of the brigade, then he should not be able to find them, and it is absolutely impossible to find them so easily. Who are these people? Why are they guarding here? Single quote. Something is wrong. The demise of the Kuruta tribe is not just because of Phantom Troupe. There are other reasons. Boss, we found these people here. While Rocky was thinking, he suddenly heard a voice from the phone not far away. Someone answered the phone and heard such a sentence from the other end. Rocky's eyes shrank rapidly. Have Piro and the others been discovered? There are so many tribesmen, Although there are not 50 or 60, there are nearly 20 to 30 people. This number of people hiding not far away, it is indeed easy for Nen to find them. Wait for us to come over immediately, and we can't let anyone escape. The voice came. Rocky turned his head to look at another tree. The voice came from behind a tree about 7 meters in front of the left. Do it. In a split second, Rocky had already made a judgment. What are you waiting for if you don't do it? Once Piro and his tribe are surrounded, all the tribesmen will die, and now. All Rocky needs to do is attract attention. This time, there is no preparation. If the enemy is very strong, even Rocky himself may not be able to escape intact. He made up his mind. How can you become stronger if you are afraid of death? You were a loser in your previous life, so do you want to be a loser in this life? Let's do it. Instantly took out the sword of the wise king and threw it directly behind the tree. Whoosh! The blade easily cut through the bushes and cut the leaves. But at this moment, no one could see the flying sword. Nen application skills, invisibility. The sword of the wise king is materialized, so of course you can use invisibility. This is something Rocky had never thought of before. At this moment, he wanted to kill the enemy silently, but he directly used it. The blade was out of hand, and under the effect of invisibility, there was no trace at all. Unless you use condensation. At this moment, Rocky stared at the direction of the tree, and the blade went around the tree directly, and flew over the head of the person hiding behind the tree. And from Rocky's perspective, he seemed to sense the position of the opponent. At the same time, he seemed to be able to use phantom shift to instantly move to the opponent's position. This made Rocky stunned. What was going on with this feeling? The blade was still flying, and Rocky controlled the current limit control distance to no more than 15 meters. With Rocky as the center of the circle, the surrounding 15 meters were all places where the blade could fly and control. Flying to another tree again, it circled and flew over the opponent's head. Rocky seemed to sense the same thing. This moment reminded Rocky of something. Mark. That's right, the blade flew over the enemy's head and could mark others, and Rocky had a strange premonition. If the sword was seen, then it could not be marked. This feeling made Rocky's heart beat faster for no reason. In just 7 seconds, Rocky marked all the 5 people he found. The next second, the limit distance for controlling the sword blade has been reached, and the farther the distance, the lower the speed and stealth. Rocky gently moved the fingers of his right hand, and the next second, the sword blade flying slowly in the air disappeared instantly. When it appeared again, it came to Rocky's hand, accompanied by a slight crystal burst. The corners of Rocky's mouth also raised slightly. He exhaled gently. Pa! This time it was no longer a flash of white light, but a silent black smoke, which appeared from the figure left by Rocky, but it lasted less than a second and disappeared. Compared with other times of apparition, this moment Rocky felt that his apparition did not seem to increase the impact force. The moment he appeared again, the sword in Rocky's hand cut directly at the enemy's throat. Swish! A knife easily cut the opponent's neck, and then Rocky suddenly disappeared in the next second. Only a faint black smoke was left, which quickly dissipated. 5 consecutive flashes. When Rocky stopped, he had returned to his original position again. Bang, bang, bang. There was a crash in the forest. As expected, there was a strong smell of blood, which made Rocky stunned. The continuous apparitions just now appeared instantly and attacked directly. Those people couldn't react at all, and Rocky could even clearly feel that these people couldn't even use mind defense. They were killed instantly by themselves. If they used mind defense, they wouldn't be killed instantly. This ability is completely different from ordinary apparitions. It's hard to explain the ability. Because I want to kill these people as soon as possible, the ability responds to me and awakens a new ability. It's not uncommon for new abilities to be awakened on the spot. The head of the Leopard Division in the original book awakened a new ability in the battle with Mo Laowu. It's true that when a certain emotion or idea is strong to a certain extent, the mind will change and respond. But unlike that unlucky guy, Rocky's awakened ability is obviously much stronger. And it is very practical. What happened? This guy is dead. The other 2 people hiding in the forest jumped out from the dark and looked at their companion lying on the ground. Both of them were shocked. After all, their companion was killed without any notice. How could this be possible? Who is it? Who did it? When did they do it? It was too weird that his companions were killed while his eyelids were lowered. At this moment, Rocky had already thrown the sword in his hand, and it was also hidden. However, this time Rocky felt that there was no need to mark it. Because, although these people are Nen, they are very different from the people of Phantom Troupe. Not to mention compared with Uvajin. The two were looking at their companions on the ground, and suddenly a strong wind hit them from behind. The moment he turned around suddenly, a sword pierced through his head and stabbed out directly from the back of his head. Blood flowers burst out from the back of his head. Rocky's thin figure, like a monkey, pierced the other person's head with a sword in one hand, grabbed the other person's hair with the other hand, and stepped on the other person's shoulders with both feet. At this moment, his eyes fell on another person. And this guy seemed to be scared silly, with his eyes wide open and an expression of complete fear. The next second, Rocky pulled out the bloody sword, rolled backwards in the air, and the knife in his hand flew out of his hand and flew directly to the opponent. The opponent saw the blade coming, and didn't even think about fighting back, and tried his best to escape. He turned around and ran. The next second, the sword appeared on his right side, and he could see from the corner of his eye that the sword almost caught up with him instantly. But he was still thankful that the opponent's attack was off. Suddenly, white crystals appeared around him. A hand suddenly grabbed his hair and pulled it back. The whole person flew into the air, and Rocky's right hand holding the sword fell directly to the opponent's heart. Puff! Blood splattered, making half of Rocky's face splashed with blood. He let go and let the guy fall to the ground. Rocky looked at the opponent coldly, and the sword was still stuck in the opponent's heart. The opponent stared at Rocky, with horror and surprise in his eyes. It seemed that he couldn't believe it when he saw Rocky's young face. A little devil. I was killed by such a little devil. Rocky squatted down and fumbled on the other person's body, and soon found a mobile phone. He opened the address book, ignored the phone calls at the back, and found that the latest call was 5 minutes ago, and there was a call every 10 minutes. There were 2 different numbers in total, and they were communicating with each other according to this time pattern. It seems that in addition to the group of people here, there are 2 other places with these assassins. I have to return as soon as possible, and there are 2 more groups of enemies that must be dealt with, otherwise the survivors of the Kuruta tribe will probably be wiped out in this forest. Rocky raised his hand out of thin air and threw the long sword that was supposed to be inserted into the enemy's heart. The sword disappeared from the opponent's body and reappeared, and it was already flying rapidly towards the distance. Keeping the state of shadow, Rocky directly and quickly followed the sword flashing. It took a few breaths to reach the position of Piro. At this time, Rocky did not come out immediately, and controlled the sword to fly towards Piro. Piro stared at the surroundings. He, an ordinary person, could not see anything at all. And suddenly 2 words appeared on the ground in front of him. Enemy. Piro was stunned for a moment, and then words appeared one after another. Go. When he saw this word, Piro didn't know what was going on, but 2 more words appeared in the next second. Rocky. When he saw the word Rocky, although Piro didn't know how Rocky did it, he stood up immediately and waved to the tribesmen around him. Go. And his words also made the people hiding in the dark stunned for a moment. They finally started to move, but they didn't seem to be in a hurry to do it. If these people don't want to take action, then Rocky will not give up this great opportunity. The sword of the wise king flew out directly. It flew towards the 2 Nen who followed the Kuruta tribe in an invisible state. When the sword of the wise king appeared above the head of the first Nen, Rocky suddenly thought of his Yaksha king sword. If the enemy is marked, can his Yaksha king sword directly release a bullet to attack the enemy? Although he has not tried it, Rocky's intuition tells him that it is possible. Looking at the sword of the wise king that has marked the second guy, this sword is more suitable for direct apparition. It is still not good for assassination or surprise attack. It's not that the ability is not good, but it is not suitable. Assassination is a one-shot kill. It seems that I have to create a new weapon. Rocky thought. It's best to have a dagger-type weapon that allows him to perform continuous and rapid attacks. But that's a matter for the future, and now he needs to deal with these 2 guys in front of him as soon as possible. Accompanied by the black smoke rising quietly, it dissipated in the air in a blink of an eye. Rocky's figure has appeared behind the first unlucky guy. The sharp sword of the wise king penetrated directly from the back and pierced the opponent's throat. When the sword was pulled out, a big bloody hole was left. He fell to the ground instantly without even a scream. Then another person seemed to notice the strangeness of his companion and turned his head, but the first thing he saw when he turned his head was Rocky's cold eyes. You, swish, a sword to the throat. Blood splashed out immediately, but this time it seemed that Rocky had experience, and the blood did not splash on Rocky's face. Plop, when this guy fell, Rocky had appeared in the previous position. Slowly stood up and looked at the rustling bushes in the distance. That was the direction where Piro and others fled. Rocky looked at the sword of the wise king in his hand and thought he was very weak. After all, when facing the members of the brigade, it was extremely difficult to cause any damage to the other party. However, he did not expect that facing these ordinary nen, the other party could not even react to use nen. It seems that it is not that he is weak, but that the members of the brigade are too strong, making him look weak. Now Rocky estimates that his combat power should be about the same as that of Gon and Killua when they left Greed Island. Maybe his Nen energy is not as good as Gon after the Greed Island initiation, but he has the blessing of Nen, and his combat power is definitely stronger than Gon at that time. This gave Rocky a general understanding of himself. As long as they are not top-level Nen users like Phantom Troupe, then ordinary ability users should basically not be a problem for Rocky. Rocky turned around, looking behind. In this case, let Piro and others escape first. He will solve all the tales behind him, and more importantly, Rocky wants to find out who actually joined the action of exterminating the Kuruta tribe. They are waiting here. In addition to the fact that the Kuruta tribe has betrayed them, there is another possibility. This is a port. They are not here because they know that the Kuruta tribe will escape from here. They may not believe that a Kuruta tribe of more than 100 people can survive under Phantom Troupe. They are here just to wait for the Kuruta tribe's flaming red eyes. Then they can leave as soon as they get the eyes. If so, the identities of these people are clear. They are the buyer's people. As for who the buyer is, Rocky is a little curious. It is not easy to have so many Nen working for him. It costs a lot of money to hire a Nen, and the other party has so many Nen, although they can't compare with Phantom Troupe in terms of strength. But it is easy for these Nen to deal with ordinary people. This shows that the other party is also very terrifying. A strong killing intent flashed in Rocky's eyes. No matter who it is, I will get this account back for the Kuruta tribe sooner or later. The killing intent was released instantly, and the birds in the surrounding forest were frightened by the killing intent, screaming in panic and fleeing quickly around. Such a movement was naturally seen by the Nen who came around. At the same time, they also felt the killing intent released by Rocky. At this moment, more than a dozen Nen who were rushing towards this direction, after a short pause, immediately accelerated and rushed towards Rocky. A group of people in black suits soon appeared. But they were not the most important people. The first person Rocky locked on was a person in a white suit. Others were in black suits, which were convenient for hiding, but this guy was wearing white clothes. Such an eye-catching color can be seen from a distance in such a forest. And daring to wear it like this means that the other party is very confident in his own strength. Such a strong murderous aura. The other party took off his sunglasses and looked at the corpses lying on the left and right behind Rocky. Paw, he threw the sunglasses under his feet and crushed them with a casual kick. Killed my people. Very good. It seems that you have some strength. The guy in the white suit waved his hand and said, "Go chase those people from the Kuruta tribe. This kid is also from the Kuruta tribe. Leave him to me." Others immediately started to act after hearing the order. But suddenly, a subordinate who had just jumped out suddenly had a ball of blood on his forehead, and the whole person fell to the ground. Instantly died. Seeing this scene, other people retreated and looked at Rocky with horror. What happened just now? When did this kid take action? Why did one of their companions die inexplicably? If you want to go over, ask me first. Rocky said coldly. The sword of the wise king had already been suspended in the air using the hidden state. The guy just now was unlucky and just bumped into the sword of the wise king. Rocky just added a little strength to kill the opponent. He could only rely on the opponent's luck. Otherwise, in the state of hidden state, the sword of the wise king was controlled remotely, and the force was originally small. Normally, it would be good to leave a 2 cm deep wound on the enemy. Disperse. The man in white used condensation to look around. However, Rocky took back the sword of the wise king after completing the kill. As long as the enemy is experienced, it is impossible not to use condensation to observe the surroundings. Put away the sword of the wise king to avoid being seen. Even if you use hidden state, the opponent can still see it through condensation. But the man in white frowned and found nothing. It seems to be a trap-type trigger ability, or some special ability that is effective within a certain range. Disperse and stay away from this kid. Continue to chase those people of the Kuruta tribe and don't let any of them go. Although the man in white didn't really guess Rocky's ability. But the analysis is still about possession. It is indeed difficult for Rocky to start if he keeps a distance. One is that the hidden sword of the wise king can kill the enemy at a long distance, and the other is that these people have activated their thoughts, and it is highly likely that they cannot break the defense in this case. Boy, your opponent is me. I want to see if you can use the ability just now to kill me instantly again. Boom. Powerful thoughts burst out from the opponent's body. Rocky's eyes narrowed slightly, another enhancer. Strong and domineering mind energy fluctuations. At the same time, the opponent took out a weapon, a brass knuckle. This weapon is most likely used in close combat. Among all systems, there are only two types of nen who are good at close combat. Enhancer and Conjurer. Even Transmuter will not choose nen for close combat in most cases. After all, who would choose to rush up and be close to someone when they can kill the enemy from a distance? And what this guy said is not wrong. As long as they are farther away from themselves, there is no way to control the sword of the wise king to kill these guys. Watching his subordinates passing by quickly, the man in white smiled. Sure enough, as long as the distance is a little wider, your ability just now will be useless, right? You go and intercept those people from the Kuruta tribe, I will deal with this kid. Under the command of the man in white, the others quickly ran towards the distance. At this moment, Rocky wanted to intercept these guys and not let any of them escape. But the next second, the opponent's right hand with brass knuckles suddenly punched Rocky in the air. There was a crackling sound, and the shocking wave swept directly over. At this moment, Rocky dodged quickly. When Rocky dodged, a big tree behind him collapsed. Looking at the collapsed tree, Rocky frowned. Looking at the man in white in front of him, he still has the means of long-range attack. Even for Enhancer Nen, it is not only possible to develop means of close-range attack. It can also develop the ability of long-range attack. But the power. Rocky took a look at the big tree that was directly broken in the air. It seems that if he is hit by accident, he will not be able to receive this kind of attack intact with his current self. Even if he uses hard force, it may be difficult. Boy, you still want to attack my men when I'm here. Kill me first. The man glanced at the watch on his wrist and said, but you don't have much time. It won't take too much time for my men to catch up with your people. A few minutes will be enough. In other words, you may only have 1 or 2 minutes to deal with me. If you can kill me during this time, then you may be able to save. The man in white who was talking suddenly felt a strong killing intent. He suddenly noticed the black smoke rising behind him. Then a silver-white light flashed. The next second he immediately replaced his whole body with thoughts. Wow, the blade cut, and sparks also burst out on his neck. But a shallow bloody wound also appeared. The instant appearance of Rocky made the man in white stunned for a moment, and his backhand attack was extremely fast and he used his elbow to hit Rocky hard. Judging from his attack movements, he should be like a professional Sanda athlete. The action was very swift. Even if he was attacked, he would counterattack immediately. Rocky quickly dodged. He didn't even have time to complete his attack. He only cut about 5 centimeters on the opponent's neck. Then he disappeared. The disappeared Rocky returned to his original position. The sword of the wise king in his hand also appeared. The opponent covered his neck and looked at the blood on his palm. The wound was not deep, probably just cutting the skin, and the depth was not even half a centimeter. What a weird ability. I was almost killed. There was a blood mark on the neck of the man in white, but after finding that it was not a fatal wound, he ignored his wound. He stared at Rocky intently. It was obvious that this guy's combat experience was much stronger than those Nen who had been killed before. He looked at Rocky and said, Boy, it's a pity, your attack power is too weak, if it was stronger, I would have died just now. Rocky tightly grasped the sword of the wise king, which was indeed a pity. But if he had not practiced for a long time, if he had been given another month, Rocky was confident that he could have killed the other party with that blow just now. However, the time for his own practice was still too short. Even if he had top-level talent, without so much time to practice, his strength would not be improved. You seem to be a manipulator. The other party looked at Rocky and suddenly took out a knife. This size of weapon, Rocky didn't seem to be carrying it on his body before. Then there was only one explanation, this was something that the other party materialized. The man with the ability of manipulator actually chose this kind of weapon. The man in white frowned, thinking of the sudden appearance just now. Rocky's ability is probably not simple. Teleport, it seems so. But can this ability be used so easily? It shouldn't be possible. Under normal circumstances, this ability should be very demanding to use, and it cannot be used under normal circumstances. Maybe it can only be used in a specific area. Thinking of this, the man in white looked at Rocky and returned to his original position again, and suddenly an idea came to his mind. He took a big step and rushed towards Rocky quickly. Although the speed of this guy's sudden burst was not as fast as Uvijin, it was still swift. Rocky originally planned to dodge, but suddenly saw the other party roaring excitedly. Your ability should only be used in a fixed area. If you are driven out of this area, your ability will be unusable. The other party came to Rocky and grabbed Rocky's shoulders with both hands. He pounced on Rocky like a brown bear, and rushed to the back quickly due to inertia. In just a few seconds, he covered a distance of more than 10 meters. He pressed Rocky to the ground, raised his right fist with brass knuckles, and punched the suppressed Rocky. He aimed at Rocky's stomach, trying to punch Rocky through the stomach. Crack! A punch hit the ground, and the brass knuckles were strengthened. The power directly penetrated the ground more than 10 centimeters, and then exploded underground. The man in white was stunned for a moment, looking at the white crystals scattered around and gradually disappearing. Your guess is half right. Suddenly Rocky's voice sounded. My ability can only be used within a certain range, but this distance is centered on me, and it is much farther than you think. The current limit of Rocky's flashing distance is probably about 100 meters. Snap! The sound of glass breaking rang out, and Rocky was stunned. Looking at the sword of the wise king that he threw out, he originally just wanted to use the phantom shift to enhance the impact and kill the opponent. But the moment the sword of the wise king was thrown out, the sword body showed a white crystal state. Although the shape of the sword did not change, the material seemed to have become crystal. The crystal sword directly penetrated the opponent's chest. No wound was left, but it was obvious that the blood mist exploded. The man in white widened his eyes and looked at the front with empty eyes. A little ghost. Killed himself. Rocky looked at the sword of the wise king that was like a half crystal in front of him. He raised his hand to grab the sword and soon the sword began to become real again. The special form just now was like a state between a solid and a semi-solid state. It made Rocky feel very strange. He had never developed this ability, so how could he use it inexplicably? The death of the man in white also puzzled Rocky. He didn't see any wounds on the man's body, so why was he bleeding? He came to the body of the man in white and tore open the white suit on his back. Seeing the wound at the bleeding position clearly, Rocky felt even more incredible. The wound was obviously pierced by a blade, but it was not cut open, but like countless tiny needles. It pierced his body in an instant, causing his internal organs to be instantly severely damaged, and his blood vessels, muscle tissues, etc. were directly destroyed. This kind of injury is more terrifying than the damage caused by stabbing the enemy directly. I didn't expect these materialized weapons to be used in this way. This is simply an unexpected surprise. But strictly speaking, it is normal. Rocky may have incorporated his own ideas into the ability during development. As for whether it can be realized, it depends on Rocky himself. And some abilities may become real without knowing it, as Rocky's strength becomes stronger or his ideas change, but they may never appear. These things are uncertain for Nen. Rocky raised his hand and controlled the sword that changed into a crystal form to fly away. Whoosh! At this moment, not only did the sword fly faster and more powerful, but it also consumed more mental energy. Rocky clearly felt that in order to maintain the weapon in this state, he needed to consume more energy than usual. But the speed of travel was also faster. Basically 3 times as fast as before. This new form will be called the Phantom Sword. Single quote. Rocky said in his heart, if his weapon can maintain this form, then Rocky will have more ideas in his mind. Sooner or later, he will develop that move, the real, Phantom Sword. Control a full 13 weapons and launch continuous air attacks on the enemy. You don't even need to get close to the enemy to be able to directly beat them into a sieve. That feeling must be very, very cool. And now Rocky has another idea. It is necessary to develop the ability of a mind beast. When the men of the white-clothed man chased the Kuruta people, Rocky was a little annoyed that if he had developed the ability to summon a mind beast, then he could stop these people by himself, instead of being restrained by a master for a short time, causing himself to be unable to do anything else. But all this must be based on the amazing amount of mind energy. So it is necessary to modify the physical potential to a more terrifying level. Single quote. Otherwise, no matter how strong the ability is, it can only be used once or twice, which is not considered powerful at all. The real power is to treat the ultimate move as a normal attack. While Rocky was thinking, Rocky caught up with the guys before in less than 30 seconds. This time there is no need to mark. Rocky threw the sword of the wise king violently, and the impact of a phantom shift in an instant killed a Nen instantly. When the other party screamed, the sound of crystals breaking was heard as Rocky's ability was used. The others turned to check. See, a white light kept flashing in the forest, and each time only some white crystals floating in the air and quickly dissipating could be vaguely seen. And every time these crystals appeared, a companion would scream and then die directly. In a few blinks of an eye, there was only one person left out of the dozen people. This guy glanced at the figure of the Kuruta people that could be seen in front of him. But at this moment, he was not thinking about how to kill these Kuruta people, but how to escape. He turned around and fled madly into the forest. Swish! Rocky appeared 10 meters in front of him, standing on the tree trunk, holding the bloody sword of the wise king. The transition between hunter and prey is sometimes just a moment, Rocky said. The next second, his face flashed past the opponent. A sword pierced his heart. Rocky found that he was becoming more and more skilled in killing people. He was even a little too skilled. It seems that his talent may not only be reflected in the practice of Nen, but also in killing people. After a short rest of more than 10 seconds, Rocky stood up again and chased in the direction of Piro. At this moment, at the port on the edge of the town, Piro saw the only ship parked here. Looking back at the forest, he still didn't see Rocky's figure. He called the tribesmen to rush to the port. The ship was a sailboat. It can be seen that this town is also a remote and backward area for the outside world. Rocky's previous intention was to let them escape by boat, but the problem Piro is facing now is that he has no money from the outside world. How to get on the ship in this situation? If they get on the ship like this, the captain may drive them off. Arriving at the port, there are about 20 people in the Kuruta tribe now. These people are the last hope of the Kuruta tribe. Piro didn't know what to do. At this time, the captain stood on the deck and said, "You, come up." Suddenly, he heard the captain's voice and was stunned for a moment. I don't have money." Because of his nervousness, Piro spoke the common language of the outside world, and his pronunciation seemed a little unstandard. However, the captain didn't seem to mind. He just smiled and said, "It's okay, I won't charge you. Your companion has already paid for you." "Has the companion paid?" Piro was stunned for a moment. "Who?" The other party frowned. "A man named Hazo. He told me to wait here for a long time, and if there are people dressed like him, he will take you away. If there are no people, forget it." Hazo. He had already brought 10 Kuruta tribesmen to stay in the town a few days ago. When the Kuruta tribe was attacked, the tribe leader sent a signal immediately. Hazo took his people away directly. Before leaving, Hazo made such preparations, which helped Piro a lot. "Everyone, upload quickly." Piro stood at the port and looked at the forest in the town. "Rocky, what are you doing? Come on." Single quote. After everyone got on the boat, Rocky jumped out of the forest and ran towards this side at a very fast speed. Soon, Piro shouted Rocky and asked the captain to prepare to sail. When Rocky got on the boat, Piro looked at the blood on Rocky's body. Although he didn't see it with his own eyes, he understood what Rocky did. Fortunately, you are here, otherwise we would probably die, Piro said. Rocky smiled and said, it's nothing, those guys are pretty weak. When the boat slowly sailed away, Rocky suddenly saw a car coming on the muddy road leading to the town. In such a remote place, you can still drive, and it looks quite luxurious. The person who got off the car made Rocky's eyes shrink slightly. Fortunately, if we had delayed a little longer, we might not have been able to escape. The Phantom Troupe's people could have caught up with us. The boat has already set out to sea. Even if the Phantom Troupe wanted to catch up, they couldn't. Moreover, the Phantom Troupe didn't know that the people of the Kuruta tribe had escaped by boat. Hey, right, two little ghosts, where is your destination? You were in a hurry to urge me to start the boat. Now can you tell me where to go? After hearing this, Piro and Rocky looked at each other. Both of them were confused. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.